Chapter 800. When Ancestor Devil saw this mission, the edge of his lips curled upwards. His smile caused the surrounding cultivators of the Great Void Heaven Temple to feel a chill. Dongbo Shuang? Ancestor Devil muttered. Our primal cosmos has finally produced a decent young fellow after us. But he actually ran to the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. Even though it is quite far, and it will be troublesome to rush over. But it has been a long time since I went out for a walk. Let me go out and have a good slaughter. At the same time, I can visit this little friend from my hometown. Ancestor Devil accepted the mission with a thought. The mission that originally appeared on the crystal wall disappeared. With Ancestor Devil's strength, he was qualified to accept this mission. Even though he was the youngest primal chaos existence in the Great Void Heaven Temple, his strength wasn't any weaker than those primal chaos existences who had cultivated for a long time. His reputation was built by killing. Who? Ancestor Devil then turned around and left. Only then did the other cultivators let out a sigh of relief. Chintai Continent. Dongbo Shuang was cultivating in a low-profile manner. Even though he comprehended the Voidwalker system, Ripple Dao, and Mirage Dao, most of his attention was placed on the less than 13 apocalyptic swords of the Dao of Slaughter. After all, if the Voidwalker system could allow him to possess a terrifying body and an extremely powerful offensive termination energy, then the less than 13 apocalyptic swords would allow him to utilize the laws and profound mysteries to its pinnacle. Furthermore, the laws and profound mysteries had an extremely formidable aspect. The moment he comprehended it, his incarnations could use it too. Amen. The incarnation of Dongbo Shuang was cultivating the first apocalyptic sword deep in a desert. Even though his concealment techniques were formidable, the moment he practiced it, it would be easy for the enemies to discover him if they were searching for him. Hence, Dongbo Shuang relied on his incarnations to practice from afar. He would not reveal his true body. I have been drifting in the primal chaos void for over 50 million years, and I have comprehended half of it. There are only a few bottlenecks that I have yet to comprehend. After fighting with those void creatures for a few times, my first apocalyptic sword had a breakthrough. Now that I have reflected on the previous battles, I have another huge breakthrough. Dongbo Shuang revealed a look of joy. Currently, I can control my spear to form 35 holes. It was actually very normal. During his long period of meditation, he had already comprehended the apocalyptic first sword to an extremely high level. There were only a few things left that he needed to test in battle. Time flew by. In one of the cities of the Chintai Continent, in a blacksmith's yard, a cold-faced young man was striking a knife embryo with a sledgehammer. Suddenly, an invisible force seeped into the young man's body, sealing his soul. At this moment, he couldn't even kill himself. The young man's body trembled slightly as he gently put down the sledgehammer in his hand. Universe God Dong Yi. Suddenly, a gray-robed elder appeared in the courtyard. His voice was hoarse. Master has chosen you. The young blacksmith calmly turned around and looked at the gray-robed old man. The expression on his face turned into a faint smile. You've chosen me? You chose me as your food? Yes. The gray-robed elder said in a low voice. Ha ha, food. The young blacksmith laughed maniacally, and the surrounding ground trembled. Many items floated into the air and exploded. However, no matter how powerful the explosions were, they were all confined to the courtyard and did not affect the countless mortals outside. After cultivating to the stage 3 world deity realm, the end result is to become food. The young blacksmith looked at the gray-robed elder. His eyes were filled with a cold smile. You powerful existences who have transcended have also become the claws and teeth of those void monsters, capturing us for them. You are our seniors, the gray-robed elder said in a low voice. Master can cover the entire primal chaos continent with a single thought. Even if he doesn't send us, he can easily capture you with a single thought. He sent me because he is too lazy to do it himself. It's you who are afraid of death. The young blacksmith sneered. Us world deities are almost all eaten directly. As for you, at most your avatars will be eaten. You can still cultivate them out. It's just food for a longer period of time. The gray-robed elder said coldly. Then why are we still alive? The young blacksmith's eyes were filled with madness. It's just that we are afraid of death. I hate that I can't see the day when those void monsters die. My wife was captured by you. My teacher was captured by you. My good friends were captured by you. And each and every one of them was eaten by the void monsters. Finally, it's my turn, ha ha ha. I only hate that I can't see the day when they die. The young blacksmith was like a madman. The gray-robed elder sighed softly. He extended his hand and grabbed the young blacksmith. Following that, he directly tore through the void and left. Since he was still alive, he chose to wait. He similarly hated those void monsters to the bone. His avatars were eaten alive time and time again. How could such a feeling not be painful? It was worse than death. But they still endured it. They wanted to live. In their hearts, they looked forward to the arrival of hope. However, many of them looked forward to the day when the void monsters were killed. They wanted revenge. Within the palace hall, a void creature in human form sat there. His arms were very long, and his head was thin and long. One of his eyes flickered with a cold jade light as he looked at the many cages below. Within the cages, a large number of world deities were imprisoned. Most of them were humans, but there were also some beasts and other life forms. All of them revealed expressions of anger, madness, and hatred. This thin and tall void creature chuckled strangely. With the thought these food within the cages could all let out a sound. Void monster, eat. We aren't afraid. Void monster. There will be a day when a powerful cultivator will descend and kill you. We are just a step ahead. You guys will be here soon. Supreme Existence, I beg of you, please kill these void monsters. I will forever believe in you and serve you. The world deities within the cages were either cursing angrily, remaining silent, or going crazy. They hated these void monsters because they had turned the entire primal chaos land into hell. Too many of their friends, even their loved ones, life and death brothers, masters and disciples, they had all been eaten by these void monsters. To powerful existences who had transcended, the void creatures would still leave a sliver of hope. After all, devouring powerful existences would still be of some help to them. As for weak world deities, to these void monsters that were at least at the ruler level, devouring them was of no help to their strength. They preferred to see the despairing looks of these weak world deities. Woo! The thin and tall void creature squinted his eyes as he listened. I can hear fear, hatred and despair. This is too interesting, too wonderful. The attendants by the side were all silent. They, the powerful existences, could live on. But the weak would be eaten in batches. There were also many weaker deities, transcendents, and mortals. They would often be eaten city by city, or even country by country. This was because the void creatures felt that this was a very joyous situation. Alright, it is time to enjoy the delicacies. The thin and tall void creature spoke. His face was filled with an expression of enjoyment. This was the happiest moment of his life. Pooh! A spear suddenly appeared. The spear revolved and rolled over. The tip of the spear was still emitting a cold black light, causing the thin and tall void creature to reveal a look of terror. He hurriedly waved his arm to block, and a layer of scales appeared on his arm. But this spear was several times stronger than before. PFFF, 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 PFFF. The thin and tall void creature's body was instantly pierced with 26 holes. As the number of holes decreased, its power skyrocketed. The endless slaughter energy contained within instantly destroyed this thin and tall void creature's body. At this moment, Dongbo Shuang walked out from the void with a spear in his hand. He coldly looked at the throne that had been completely shattered into nothingness. Only a few items were left beside the throne. It was just a single strike. That void creature had already been exterminated. I originally wanted to cultivate to become stronger, so I had to endure and not make a move. I was afraid that if I made a move, I would infuriate these void creatures and affect many powerful existences. Dongbo Ying's eyes were filled with killing intent, but I was wrong. If I didn't make a move, the batches of world deities, transcendents, and mortals in this primal chaos great land would already be doomsday for them. For the lives of a small group of powerful existences, I have to watch as countless lives are being devoured. I can't do it. Then let's kill. I will do my best to kill them all. Dongbo Shui Ying's eyes were filled with killing intent. Chapter 801. Among the world deities who were imprisoned and about to be eaten was that blacksmith young man. All of them stared dumbfoundedly at the high and mighty void monster that possessed monstrous power. In front of a spear, with just one move, that void monster had already died. Dead, he's dead. Finally, an expert has descended. Has a supreme existence heard my prayers? These universe deities, and even the attendants beside them, felt excited. The attendants were almighties. Their avatars were being eaten time and time again, causing them to feel pain and despair. Some of their minds were even distorted. They did not even care about their own lives. They only wished for the void monsters that they hated the most to die. And now that void monster was really dead? Looking at the black-robed young man, who walked out from the void with a spear in his hand, the attendants and universe deities were crying tears of joy. Some of them remembered the appearance of the black-robed young man in front of them. Their hearts were filled with gratitude and excitement. They were even willing to die for the black-robed young man forever. Eternal loyalty. It's him. Many of the attendants recognized that the black-robed young man was the one who had died in the battle with a group of void creatures previously. But now he was alive? The black-robed Dongbo Shuang turned his head and swept his gaze across the attendants, as well as the universe deities in the cages. This is the first one. With that, Dongbo Shuang took a step and disappeared. Ha ha ha. This day has finally come. This day that I have yearned for even in my dreams. As long as I can see this day, I can die in peace. It's enough, it's enough. Seeing the void monster die, it's enough. Many universe deities even shed tears. Even the attendants were trembling as they looked at the scene. Very soon, they received a karmic transmission. Brother Qian, the void monster that we are serving was killed by a black-robed senior who was holding a spear. He is the one who fought with a group of void monsters previously. It's the same for us. Dead. Ha ha ha, that monster is dead. I can finally see this day. Indeed, Dongbo Shuang controlled 3 clones at the same time. This was also the maximum number of clones that he could maintain at his peak. The 3 clones moved at the same time and killed 3 void creatures at the same time. Every time, a single spear strike was all it took to kill them. Following which, Dongbo Shuang did not hesitate as he teleported through the void to kill the other 3 void monsters. One could say that before the void creatures could react, or even when they did not know what was going on, Shuang had already killed a total of 9 void creatures. In addition to the 2 he had killed when he first entered the chaotic continent, there were a total of 11. There were only 5 ruler realm void monsters left on this primal chaos mainland. At this time, the 3 leaders received a message from one of the void creatures before it died. Enemy. But that dead void creature merely reported back to the leader. The other 5 ruler void creatures that were still alive did not know about it. Shui Ying's 3 incarnations relied on the void teleportation to kill another 3 void creatures in the blink of an eye. At this moment, the 3 leaders charged out and scanned the entire primal chaos mainland. Only then did they realize that there were only 2 void creatures left. Dead. The void creatures are dead. This day has finally come. They're all dead. The void creature on my side is dead too. Mine too. The one on my side is dead too. He was also killed by a black-robed senior wielding a spear in a single move. Ha ha ha, the news spread. The powerful existences, world deities and deities of the entire primal chaos mainland were extremely excited. They spread the news to 10 to 100, 10 to 100, a million. Countless life forms were excited. Many of them were crying tears of joy. Some even started to worship the black-robed senior that was described. If Dongbo Shuang were to raise his arm and call for help, countless life forms in the primal chaos mainland would be willing to follow him. Stop! You're actually still alive. The 3 leaders were enraged, although they had already discovered the 3 incarnations of Dongbo Shuang. But what did Dongbo Shuang specialize in? It was a sneak attack. Furthermore, he had an advantage in terms of void teleportation. With an even faster speed, he arrived beside the 2 remaining ruler void creatures and instantly struck out with his spear. One of the void creatures roared in fear, but he was instantly killed. As for the other one, he met with some trouble. Humph! Following a cold snort, a green lightning appeared from the void and struck towards Dongbo Shui Ying's incarnation. Before Dongbo Shui Ying's spear could pierce the enemy, the green lightning had already landed on his body. His spear technique was completely unable to defend against it, and his body was instantly destroyed. As expected of the great leader. However, it's useless. At the moment when the black-robed Dongbo Shui Ying's body dissipated, his eyes were still burning with killing intent. Because at the same time, 3 incarnations appeared in the surroundings, surrounding and attacking that void creature. Incarnations, they were not afraid of death. Even if they were killed, they would be able to regenerate with a single thought. Pooh! The 3 incarnations attacked at the same time. The void monster raised its slender neck, and its pink head was filled with despair. The great commander only had time to attack one of the incarnations, and he could only watch helplessly as his last sovereign realm subordinate was killed. On this void creature's body, Dongbo Shui Ying's spear technique had reached a new realm. He could control his spear technique to a total of 12 holes. From the first void creature he killed in this battle, he had a total of 26 holes. Now he had 12 holes. Every time he killed one, these void creatures had all sorts of defensive methods. Some relied on their scales, some relied on their skin, some relied on the power of flames, and some relied on the splitting of their bodies. Because of their different defensive methods, Dongbo Shui Ying's understanding of his own spear technique grew. The apocalyptic first sword originally lacked actual combat experience, but now, it had improved by leaps and bounds. Compared to the 100 holes he had when he first entered the primal chaos continent, he only had 12 holes now. Yet, the might of his spear technique had increased by more than 10 times. All the ruler void creatures were killed. After the attendants spread the news, it soon reached the world deities and deities. They were all incomparably excited and joyous. I am truly satisfied to be able to wait until this day and see all of them exterminated. Other than the 3 strongest commanders, all the other void creatures are gone. It is already good that we could reach this stage. The attendants released some of the imprisoned sovereigns and sovereigns. They were all looking upwards, looking at the distant void. There were 3 black-robed young men facing off against the 3 commanders. Those 3 were all terrifying void gods. It is worth it for us. We are willing even if we die. But this black-robed senior is currently in danger. The 3 commanders of the void creatures will definitely not let him off. Everyone who could see this scene through the void felt their hearts tightening. They had been immersed in endless darkness. This time, a large number of void creatures were exterminated. Even though the 3 strongest commanders were still alive, to the natives of the primal chaos continent, this was an unprecedented victory. They had already vented the resentment in their hearts. They were extremely satisfied to be able to reach this stage, and did not dare to hope for more. They were currently worried about this black-robed senior and his safety. Many world deities also found out from the powerful existences that this senior, who saved them, was currently in danger. All of them hoped that this senior could survive, and wished that they could use their lives to exchange for the safety of the senior. And at this moment, Dongbo Shuang did not feel any fear. His 3 incarnations each wielded a spear. They were scattered in the void, looking at the 3 void gods that appeared in front of them. They had different appearances, and the leading one had a pair of golden wings. He had a savage head, and a pair of dark yellow eyes was currently staring at Dongbo Shuang. By his side, one was the black-scaled monster whom he had fought previously. The other was the largest one with a 3-eyed humanoid void creature with hair. Since you did not die the previous time, you should be hiding. Who would have thought that you still dared to come out and seek death? The black-scaled monster was slightly frustrated. It was he who killed the incarnation of Dongbo Shuang previously. The 3 black-robed Dongbo Shuang said at the same time, "The reason I came out is to kill the 3 of you." Star. Chapter 802. You are just a little true god ruler, yet you dare to say such big words. The hairy humanoid 3-eyed void creature boomed. There is an insurmountable gap between true god rulers and void gods. Even if there are dozens or hundreds of rulers, I can still devour them in a single gulp. The black-scaled monster by the side was filled with disdain. Even though Dongbu Shui had killed a large group of ruler void creatures, the three commanders did not feel threatened at all. Because according to their experience, rulers wanting to fight against void gods? What a joke! Only the most apex superpowers in the legends could nurture a handful of geniuses that could be counted with one's fingers. And only then could rulers transcend realms and kill void gods. But how rare were those geniuses? Furthermore, they did not have a single void god, but three, especially the great commander who had cultivated for a long period and was extremely powerful. Big brother. The hairy humanoid three-eyed creature turned to look at their great leader. The black-scaled monster also looked at the great leader. The great commander squinted at Dongbu Shui, ordering, "Kill him." "Yes. Haha, kill." The black-scaled monster and the humanoid three-eyed creature immediately acted after receiving permission. One could see circular black ripples emitting from the body of the black-scaled monster. These black ripples swept in all directions. As for the humanoid three-eyed creature, his third eye released an unseen ripple. This ripple swept across the three incarnations of Dongbu Shui, and in all directions. Strangely, the law domain of both parties did not interfere with each other at all. Humph. The three incarnations of Dongbu Shui hid in the mirage world, greatly reducing the power of the black ripple. As for the unseen ripple, it was a unique soul attack. The three incarnations of Dongbu Shui were controlled by his true body from afar. Just his consciousness descended, and he was not afraid of soul attacks. After killing those Dominator rank void creatures, my Armageddon first sword has improved tremendously. Now I can create 12 holes. The three void gods in front of me are even stronger. Fighting with them will be of greater help to me in tempering myself. I must take this opportunity to comprehend the apocalyptic first sword. Dongbu Shui thought. He knew it himself. Without comprehending the apocalyptic first sword, wanting to kill three void gods was simply a dream. Therefore, he had to comprehend it as soon as possible. What he lacked in the apocalyptic first sword was actual combat. Boom! Within the mirage world, one of the black-robed Dongbu Shui teleported towards the humanoid three-eyed creature. Immediately after, he thrust out the spear in his hand. The spear's shaft spun as it shot out. It was as if an invisible wheel of laws was crushing over. The stability of the spear's tip was somewhat difficult to control, and it trembled slightly as it stabbed towards the enemy. The humanoid three-eyed creature extended his hand, his hairy hand grabbing at Shui Ying's spear. The spear's body was constantly rotating, and the creature's hairy hand was unable to grasp it firmly. The spear's tip still pierced through his thick fur and skin, with some of the spear's tip penetrating deep into his body. "You can hurt me? Second brother, didn't you say that his offense is weak?" The three-eyed humanoid creature roared. At this moment, a total of 11 small holes had appeared on the chest of the black-scaled monster. These small holes were rapidly recovering. He was also roaring. "How would I know? The power of his spear technique has greatly increased, and he can actually injure me. But this little injury isn't much. Hurry up and kill him." If one said that the two incarnations had some battle results when fighting against the second and third commanders, then when attacking the great commander folded his golden wings and stood unmoving in the void. His dark yellow eyes swept across the incoming black-robed Shui. At that moment, with a pa, a green lightning directly entered the mirage world and struck the body of the black-robed Shui. No matter what spear technique it was, it could not resist against the strange green lightning, and in the blink of an eye, this incarnation was destroyed. But just as one incarnation was destroyed, another black-robed Dongbu Shui appeared in the distant void. Incarnations relied on the energy of the mirage world, and the less than 3,000 incarnations, absolute art to form them with a thought. Because the energy one could borrow was not much, the strength of the incarnation formed was slightly weaker. It was comparable to an ordinary ruler with a weaker body, and could not compare with his true body. Seeing another incarnation appearing, the great commander squinted his eyes. What a formidable true god ruler. He has not revealed his true body from start to finish, and it is only his incarnations that came out to battle. Furthermore, The technique he used to condense his incarnations is extremely profound. Ordinary incarnations are condensed using the energy within their bodies, but he seems to be relying on external energy to condense them. Thus, it is impossible to find his true body. Like a void god. Using the void god energy within one's body to condense an incarnation to battle, the moment the incarnation died, one would have to use the void god energy within one's body to condense it again. By then, the enemy could completely rely on the disturbance created by condensing an incarnation to find the location of the true body. But Dongbua Shuaying was different. He relied on the energy of the mirage world to condense an incarnation. Thus, it was impossible to find his true body. Since he is able to condense an incarnation with a thought, his true body must be hiding somewhere nearby. The great commander thought. If it was a primal chaos giant, he might be able to condense an incarnation forcefully from a relatively far distance away. But the current black-robed teenager was merely a true god ruler. Since he could condense an incarnation with a thought, his true body must be somewhere nearby. And that was indeed the case. The true body of Dongbua Shuaying should be within the region of the mirage world. But the enemy could not be found. I have to find him. Otherwise, it would be pointless no matter how many incarnations I kill. The great commander was feeling vexed. Hong! The great commander tried unleashing his law domain. At that moment, countless black lightning bolts appeared in the vast space. But the power of these black lightning bolts could not be compared to that single green lightning bolt. Still, they were superior in terms of quantity and range. They swept out wantonly, and even invaded the interior of the mirage world. But after sweeping through the entire place, the great commander still did not discover any movement. How do we find him? Where exactly is he hiding? He shouldn't be hiding too far away. The great commander became even more vexed. He did not cultivate the witchcraft system that researched the myriad existences, nor did he cultivate the laws and profound mysteries system that was extremely profound. He was also not a void walker, or some other unique system. Instead, he cultivated the simplest and most direct cultivation system, the devour class system. This system was to constantly devour and transform energy to make the body stronger. But it was too difficult to find Dongbua Shuaying, who was hiding in the dark, the mirage world, void evasion concealment, and the concealment talisman of the golden-robed disciple. With these three great techniques, much less him, even Bloodblade, who had many profound techniques, could not find his disciple. He could not find Dongbua Shuaying, but Dongbua Shuaying was completely immersed in comprehending the apocalyptic first sword. Over the past 50 million years, he had been comprehending it time after time in actual combat. Actual combat could prove the results of a battle. If he continued to immerse himself in comprehending it, he might have to spend more than 10 million years before he could gradually succeed. But by combining comprehension with actual combat, the efficiency would be much faster. Big brother, this ruler's strength is increasing. The humanoid three-eyed creature's voice boomed. There were 3 obvious holes on the surface of his body. Hurry up and do it. Dongbua Shuaying could already control the 3 holes with a single thrust of his spear. Clearly, he was close to fully grasping the apocalyptic first sword. Even so, he was no longer at a disadvantage against the second and third commanders. If we can't find his true body, it doesn't matter how many incarnations we kill. The great commander coldly shouted. As he spoke, he swept his eyes across, and a green lightning instantly attacked this incarnation. But this time, Dongbua Shuaying used his spear to block it. The spear revolved and rumbled, bringing with it a strange profoundness. It was as though it could penetrate through the void. The tip of the spear contained an extremely terrifying Tao of Slaughter's profundities, forcefully tearing apart the green lightning. Although some of it still swept past Dongbua Shuaying's incarnation, it was unable to destroy it. His strength has really increased. The great commander was also anxious. Dongbua Shuaying's true body, on the other hand, was pondering over the experience he gained from tearing apart the lightning with his spear. I have to conceal the Tao of Slaughter more deeply. I cannot release it too much. The feedback from the battle caused him to continuously revise his spear arts. He could already feel that he was very close to comprehending the apocalyptic first sword. Chapter 803. The great chieftain was still trying to find Dongbua Shui Ying's true body. As for Dongbua Shui Ying, as he fought with the second chieftain and third chieftain, he started to gain enlightenment. His mind was suddenly enlightened, and he finally had a clear understanding of the first sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords. This apocalyptic first sword didn't have any worldly aura or killing intent. Instead, it had an enchanting beauty. It was as if everything was simple and pure. This extreme beauty caused Dongbua Shui Ying to be intoxicated. He didn't dare to imagine that the Tao of slaughter contained within this sword was clearly not complicated. However, it was like charcoal that had undergone a bizarre transformation, turning into an incomparably beautiful diamond. The apocalyptic first sword, formed from the simple slaughter Tao's profundities, was so terrifying. This is Forefather Tian Yu's realm. It is said that it is possible to master the apocalyptic second sword in the ruler realm. However, since ancient times, only one ruler has managed to do so. Dongbua Shui Ying thought to himself. The golden-robed disciples were all monstrous geniuses. However, even if an absolute art was placed in front of them, they would only be able to master the apocalyptic first sword at the ruler realm. However, Forefather Tian Yu was able to create a second sword that was even stronger than the ruler realm. It was true that there was always someone stronger. Pooh! The spear spun and pierced out. This time the rotation seemed very slow. However, that was an illusion. In reality, it was extremely fast. The tip of the spear was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water as it tapped on the chest of the black-scaled monster. Instantly, a huge hole appeared on the monster's chest. Furthermore, this hole was rapidly expanding and destroying the monster's body. It only stopped after destroying more than half of the monster's body. This caused the black-scaled monster to reveal a look of fear. The hairy three-eyed humanoid was attacked by the two incarnations. It was the same spear technique. However, with just a simple tap, two huge holes appeared on the three-eyed humanoid's body. Furthermore, the holes were expanding rapidly. No! The three-eyed humanoid shouted in fear. Big brother, save me! Save me! The second chieftain and the black-scaled monster stopped fighting and started fleeing frantically. Neither of them had expected that the incarnation, which had been on par with them just a moment ago, would suddenly increase in strength and completely suppress them. They reckoned that in a few moves they would die. What? The great leader, who had been searching for Dongbua Shui Ying's true body, was shocked. He hurriedly teleported over. Stop. Pooh! Another shot. The three-eyed humanoid's injuries were even more severe. His eyes were filled with despair and disbelief as he died. He had actually been killed by a sovereign. And it had only been one of the hegemon's clones. However, he should rest in peace because the one who killed him was a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Furthermore, it was a Void Walker. Because the black-scaled monster had only been attacked by one of the clones, the great leader had managed to save him in a thrilling manner. He had immediately kept the black-scaled monster into his grotto heaven treasure. The moment he had been saved, the black-scaled monster felt a sense of relief. In midair, three black-robed young men who looked exactly the same stood in midair surrounding the great leader. The great leader's dark yellow eyes swept across the three incarnations in front of him. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he growled. I've long heard of some legendary rulers who cultivated in several cultivation systems. Some had even become the disciple of a cosmos god, and they could kill void gods with their ruler bodies. But I've heard of them before, yet I've never seen them before. This time, I've seen them with my own eyes. They are actually able to kill void gods just by sending their incarnations. Truly formidable. I wonder which superpower you came from? Which sacred world are you from out of the 5 great sacred worlds? You can't guess? Dongbua Shui Ying retorted with a question. Your incarnation is clearly very weak, yet your spear technique is so profound that it could draw out such terrifying power. Are you from the Laws and Profound Mysteries system? The great leader asked. I've heard that the primogeniture of the Laws and Profound Mysteries system has fallen. Currently, the strongest is the Great Void Heaven Temple in the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Are you from the Great Void Heaven Temple? But you are a ruler. Why would you come to the Eastern Unicorn sacred world instead of the 7-star oceanic sacred world. It seems that I've guessed wrongly. You aren't from the Great Void Heaven Temple, and you have coincidentally obtained some formidable inheritance from the laws and profound mystery system? Dongbo Shuang chuckled. You seem to know quite a lot. I still thought that you know very little about the 5 great sacred worlds. You can leave. I can spare your life. The great leader coldly said. Leave? Spare my life? Why? Can you find my true body? Dongbo Shuang sneered. You can't even find my true body, so don't talk about not killing me. Furthermore, I'm afraid you can't even kill my 3 incarnations. The expression of the great leader changed. Die! Dongbo Shuang coldly roared. The 3 incarnations acted at the same time. He wasn't going to be merciful. This time, the great leader had suffered such a great humiliation, and even the 3rd commander had died. If Dongbo Shuang were to leave just like that, when the great leader vented his anger, it was unknown how many lives in this primal chaos great continent would be implicated. Therefore, he naturally had to make a move. He had to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Both sides instantly clashed. The 3 incarnations walked around the mirage world, surrounding the great leader. Spear after spear attacked. The great leader finally flapped his golden wings. He directly transformed into a blurry bolt of lightning. His speed was extremely fast, and the might of his wings was extremely terrifying. Every single golden feather on his wings was extremely hard and sharp, just like daggers. Dang dang dang, when the spear pierced the wings, it merely left behind some white spots. It was basically unable to pierce through. His abdomen area is much weaker. Dongbo Shuiying's 3 incarnations worked together to attack the great leader. And the great leader was releasing his domain to suppress in all directions. He would occasionally release a green bolt of lightning. His wings and claws were attacking time and time again, causing the 3 incarnations of Dongbo Shuiying to be helpless against him. The great leader just needed to fold his wings slightly to protect his abdomen area. He is indeed much stronger than the 2nd and 3rd commanders. Not only in terms of strength, speed, or defense, he is much stronger. Dongbo Shuiying was still feeling fortunate. Fortunately, he was a devour type, and could only rely on some of the most fundamental abilities. If he were a void god that relied on the laws and profound mysteries, his law domain would be even more frightening. Because they relied on the laws to become a void god, their law domain would be created according to the laws they specialized in. Their combat techniques would also be much more profound. As for those of the devour type, they were even more clumsy than those from the ancestor mother religion. Hence, even though they could not injure the other party for a moment, the 3 incarnations could easily defend themselves because the other party's attacks were too direct. Dongbo Shuiying's incarnations could easily resolve them. Damn! Why can't I kill him? I can't even kill his 3 incarnations. The great leader was feeling slightly anxious. He was attacking wantonly, and his power was surging. But the 3 incarnations of the human in front of him were clearly very weak, yet their spear techniques were extremely profound. Every spear could easily resolve his lightning and dissipate the force from his wings. Pooh! This was a spear with a deep violet wooden shaft. There seemed to be some ordinary patterns on the spear body, though these patterns eventually converged at the spearhead. Furthermore, the entire spear was covered in a layer of black light. It was none other than the termination energy. The spearhead was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, and also like a lover's kiss. It pierced out from the void. The great leader immediately flapped his wings to defend against it, but the spearhead had forcefully pierced through those golden wings and into his abdomen. It had even penetrated through his body. He immediately kept the spear. It disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had never acted. He had completely disappeared. True body, that's his true body. The great leader's eyes widened. He looked behind him with a savage expression, yet he could not find his true body at all. Ah! That huge hole that pierced through his wings and body was rapidly expanding. It was corroding his life force, causing him to reveal a look of anxiety. He could feel death approaching. Don't you say that the laws and profound mystery system specializes in the laws? Isn't the gap between their true bodies and incarnations too huge? Why is this one so huge? a strength that could match ordinary void gods. The termination energy that possessed a horrifying destructive power, coupled with the void god weapon that he got as a golden-robed disciple. And finally, the apocalyptic first sword. Its power naturally far surpassed that of the incarnations. No, he directly teleported through the void in an attempt to escape. Pooh. How could he teleport through the void purely by instinct against the Void Walker, who had reached the 20th level of Ascendant's hidden secret? The spear pierced through his body once again. What followed was another merciless spear. Just 3 spears. The great leader, who was about to flee, fell out of the void. His body was rapidly being corroded, and a look of disbelief appeared on his face as he stared into the distance behind him. At this moment, a white-robed young man wielding a dark purple spear walked out from the void. His eyes were incomparably cold, and the 3 clones around him directly dissipated. True body, I've finally seen your true body. Tell me, where did you come from? The body of the great leader was rapidly being corroded. It had already reached his head. Just as he finished speaking, his body completely shattered. Great Void Heaven Temple, golden-robed disciple Dongbua Shuang. Dongbua Shuang softly said. It's a pity that the great leader could no longer hear it. Chapter 804. The great commander had already died. There were some treasures left behind by the great commander floating around him. Shuang did not have the time to collect them when a black figure suddenly rushed out from one of the Eden treasures. Closely following that, it tried its best to escape. It was the previous second commander, the black-scaled monster. Escaping, the white-robed Shuang took a step. He evaded through the void and chased after them. The spear in his hand was sent out. Pooh! Regardless of whether it was in terms of void evading or the profoundness of his spear techniques, Shuang far surpassed these devour-class void creatures. No. The black-scaled monster let out an unwilling roar. However, its body was destroyed in an instant, and its ferocious face was instantly crushed into dust, leaving behind some items. The white-robed Dongbua Shuang snorted coldly. He had no pity for these void creatures that fed on countless cultivators. Actually, when he first left his hometown, he had a good impression of the void creatures. This was because the primogenitor of the Void Walkers was an extremely unique void creature. However, no matter if it was the void primogenitor or Dongbua Shuang, they would not show mercy to the great leader, who would willfully devour lives. With a flip of his hand, he kept all the items and refined some of the Eden treasures in storage treasures. As expected, they brought all the treasures with them. Dongbua Shuang thought to himself. Previously, when he was investigating, he had asked the Black Gourd spirit to investigate the chain of palaces. However, it did not find any powerful treasures. It was obvious that the 3 leaders did not trust their subordinates, and they brought all the important items with them. Communication item? Dongbua Shuang flipped his hand and took out a strange golden token. He frowned slightly. It is extremely difficult to send a message across the chaos void. The further the distance, the harder it is. He should only be able to send a message to the nearby chaos lands. I wonder if I have been exposed. The harvest is not small. There are so many unique items. Dongbua Shuang's face lit up with joy. Strictly speaking, he was still considered poor. All the precious treasures he had were obtained from his status as a golden-robed disciple and a void walker. They were extremely important and could not be traded. When he left his hometown, he had practically left everything he accumulated to Jing Qiu, Yu Qingyao, and the others. This time, he had killed 3 void gods and had earned a huge sum. There were all sorts of strange toys, weapons, precious materials, and puppets. Unfortunately, he wasn't like his master, the Blood Blade, who studied all things. To him, these items were only for trading. The more treasures, the better. In the future, we can use them to help Jing Qiu and the others. A smile appeared on Dongbua Shuang's face. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, in midair, a large group of cultivators from the Chuntai continent had gathered here. Leading them were the 5 rulers who had been released. There was also a group of paragons, ordinary powerful existences, and a large group of world deities. All of them were gathered here, looking gratefully at the saviors of their entire primal chaos land. Senior has saved countless beings on our great land, yet we still do not know Senior's name? The thin black-robed ruler, who was leading the group, said gratefully. I am called Dongbua. Dongbua Shuang chuckled. Senior Dongbua. These rulers, paragons, powerful existences, and world deities all shouted out in unison. All of them were bowing respectfully. This bow was firstly because of their strength, and secondly because of their gratitude. Dongbua Shuang continued. Now isn't the time to relax. All of you should understand that other than the batch of void monsters that I killed, there are more in other primal chaos lands. If the news of this place isn't exposed, the Chuntai continent would be relatively safe for a long period of time. But if it is exposed, there might be danger. I'll protect all of you in the dark for 100,000 years. If I don't meet any enemies within 100,000 years, I'll leave. Many thanks, Senior. These cultivators were filled with gratitude. This Senior Dongbua saved them purely out of friendship. After all, they did not have any friendship with each other previously. It was quite amazing for him to be willing to protect them in the dark for 100,000 years. This is all I can do. In the future, your fate will depend on yourselves. Dongbua Shuang said. Saying that, he turned around and took a step before tearing through the void to the highest point of the primal chaos land. He directly broke through the obstructions and entered the vast primal chaos void. Sending off Dongbua Shuang with their eyes, these natives felt complicated in their hearts. Before Dongbua Shuang came, they were living in the darkness, and they could not see any hope. And this outstanding Senior Dongbo, who was clearly a true ruler, came from the primal chaos void and single-handedly killed all the void creatures, including 3 void gods. Senior Dongbua has done a great favor to our Chuntai continent clansmen. Fellow cultivators, please remember it. The thin black-robed ruler said. We will naturally remember it. These cultivators would never forget this day for the rest of their lives. The legend of Senior Dongbua was also passed down by word of mouth on this Chuntai continent. A long time later, an ultra-strong expert was born on this Chuntai continent, and he even went to pay a visit to Dongbua Shuang. But that was something that happened a long time later. Outside the primal chaos great land, Dongbua Shuang sat cross-legged in the primal chaos void. Relying on his perception of the void, he enveloped the surroundings of the primal chaos land. According to the location of the void map, the closest batch of primal chaos lands should be able to rush over after receiving the news. They should be able to reach within 30,000 years. Dongbua Shuang thought. If someone were to rush over, it would suffice for him to protect this land for 100,000 years. He could not protect this land forever. Everything would go according to his heart, and he would do what he should do. At the same time as he was sensing the void, Shuang closed his eyes and meditated. According to the guidance left behind by forefather Tian Yu, the cultivation of the laws and profound mysteries lineage required one to comprehend stronger and stronger absolute arts, or even create stronger absolute arts. Constantly pursuing the limits, one's understanding of the laws and profound mysteries would deepen. Once the accumulation was deep enough, a breakthrough would come naturally. The mastery of the first sword of the 1-3 apocalyptic swords had indeed broadened Dongbua Shuang's horizons. He had also gained a deeper understanding of the use of laws and profound mysteries. Even when he was looking at the 21st level of Walker's hidden secret, he found that he could understand most of it now. This was actually a gradual increase in his cultivation realm. I know my own limitations. I dare not think of creating a massacre absolute art that is more powerful than the first apocalyptic sword. Dongbua Shuang thought to himself. However, I can use the profoundness of the wave Dao to supplement the first apocalyptic sword. And let's begin. Wind Ripple Path was an absolute art that Dongbua Shuang had created. It was a combination of the Massacre Dao and Wave Dao. The first apocalyptic sword was too brilliant. It was so perfect that there was no way to change it. However, using the Wave Dao to supplement the icing on the cake, Dongbua Shuang felt that it was worth a try. Just supplementing the Wave Dao was actually very difficult. If there was a slight mistake, it would be like drawing legs on a snake. However, Dongbua Shuang was after all an expert that created the Wind Ripple Path. He had experience with it. which was why he had the confidence to give it a try. In the blink of an eye, 100,000 years had passed. The white-robed Dongbu Shuiying, who was guarding outside the primal chaos continent, opened his eyes. He did not discover any ambushers. It's time to leave. Dongbu Shuiying looked at the huge primal chaos continent behind him, before silently using the void evasion to leave. He maintained the void evasion for a long period of time. Over 6,000 years later, Dongbu Shuiying saw another primal chaos continent. This place should be occupied by the void creatures. Dongbu Shuiying's eyes were cold. These void creatures that devoured and slaughtered countless lives. All of them deserve to die. Fighting with them can be considered as training. So. At that moment, 3 black-robed Dongbu Shuiyings appeared. Each of them brought along the termination energy as they charged towards this primal chaos continent. Dongbu Shuiying was not foolish. He did not know the background of the enemy. Naturally, he would send his incarnations over. If there were truly terrifying existences within, his true body in the primal chaos void would be able to escape without a trace. But according to his conjectures, the chances of meeting an existence at the Void God Unity realm was relatively low. Chapter 805. The moment they landed on this primal chaos land, the 3 incarnations of Dongbu Shuiying immediately utilized the mirage world to hide far away. Ripple. The 3 black-robed Dongbu Shuiying stood in midair. An unseen ripple rapidly enveloped the entire primal chaos land. His true body had been tempered by the primal chaos void energy, and was the darling of the primal chaos void. And his incarnations were condensed from the mirage world energy, and their control over the void was much weaker. At this moment, the Tao of Ripple was more suitable for a large-scale investigation. There were ripples everywhere. Life had undulations, rocks had undulations, plants had undulations, light had undulations. Shuiying could sense the endless undulations. There are 9 ruler realm void creatures and 1 void god. Dongbu Shuiying immediately discovered. Furthermore, the many life forms on this primal chaos land are being devoured as food. During his investigation, he discovered that some powerful existences were imprisoned, and some were living as servants. As for the world deities, they did not have the usual fighting spirit and fighting spirit. Instead, they were filled with despair, dispiritedness, madness, and hatred. Why are these void creatures so daring? Why are they so arrogant? Dongbu Shuiying's killing intent soared. Seeing the despair in the eyes of those who were imprisoned and about to be devoured, his anger could not help but rise. The void primogenitor has already ordered this. The great void heaven temple, Nacrolite sacred ground, and others have already given strict orders. Why are these void creatures so wantonly devouring the cultivators? Kill. The 3 incarnations moved at the same time. Actually, when Dongbu Shuiying used the Tao of Ripple to investigate, that void god had already sensed it. It's just that he did not care, and continued sleeping, feeling that his subordinates could deal with that brat. But just a moment later, this void god knew that he was wrong. Save me. Of the 9 ruler realm void creatures under him, only 1 managed to call for help in time, and he was killed in the end. They can actually turn into many subsidiary bodies to escape? The only ones that managed to call for help were the more unique nest-like void creatures. They had actually disintegrated into tens of thousands of saplings. Dongbu Shuiying's incarnation had also cast Slaughter Domain. With his current understanding of the Massacre Tao, his Massacre Domain had also made a breakthrough, and he could kill these weaker subsidiary bodies in an instant. Hoo. The 3 incarnations of Dongbu Shuiying tore through the void, and arrived outside the palace of that void god. The golden palace was dazzling. A 4-hoofed mutated beast with white hair walked out from the palace entrance. His white hair was pure and holy, and his hooves stepped on the void step by step. His pair of golden eyes stared at Shuiying. You are just a ruler brat. I did not treat you as a threat, yet you could actually kill 9 of my subordinates in such a short period. You're next. The 3 black-clothed Dongbu Shuiying said at the same time. Really? The white-furred 4-hoofed beast said coldly. If they die, then so be it. To be able to meet a powerful ruler like you in such a boring life, it's quite interesting. You speak too much nonsense. Die. The three black-clothed Dongbo Shuang disappeared into the mirage world at the same time. They wanted to kill the other party in close combat. The white-furred, four-hoofed beast coldly said, Inferno! Hua! Flames rose in the surrounding vast region. Every single flame was blue in color. They were like flowers, and the countless blue flames easily permeated into the mirage world, surrounding the three incarnations of Dongbo Shuang. The three incarnations all displayed their spear techniques. They executed the apocalyptic first sword. Sila, indeed. They were able to forcefully break apart the surrounding blue flames. Nevertheless, there was an unseen energy permeating through. This energy was extremely cold, yet it became blazing hot the moment it entered their bodies. The expressions of the three black-clothed Dongbo Shuang changed. His incarnations were trembling. Following that, chi, they shattered into pieces. Where is he? Where is his true body? The white-furred, four-hoofed beast's golden eyes swept across the surroundings. At the same time, an unseen ripple swept across the entire primal chaos land. He even tried to probe the primal chaos void outside, yet he could not find anything. South, the true body of Dongbo Shuang was originally hiding far away. The moment he discovered that his incarnations had died, he immediately used void teleportation to escape far away. La Domain. Dongbo Shuang was dumbstruck. He is absolutely not of the Devour class cultivation system. He should be of some other system. He actually perfected his law domain to such an extent. This realm should be at the peak of the void origin birth realm, and he should be close to stepping into the unity realm. Within the law domain, words were the law, and the cultivator could set the law. For instance, setting the law, all life forms that he wanted to kill would die instantly, like the starting ground of Dongbo Ying's hometown cosmos. He had set the law, causing all those who entered to become mortals. Naturally, Lake Heart Island Swordmaster was strong enough to resist against this law. This was the power of the law. Naturally, the law could not be casually set. It required the cultivator to specialize in a certain aspect. This void god had definitely reached an extremely high attainment in the flame aspect, allowing him to reach such a degree in his law domain. It was rumored that existences at the primal chaos realm could form a huge miniature cosmos with their law domain. The domain was a miniature cosmos. Within the miniature cosmos, there were planets, starry skies, and many existences. There were also laws set by them. Those who could not resist against the laws would die instantly. My true body is stronger, and my survival capabilities are strong too. I should be able to survive, but being suppressed by the law domain, I should only be able to unleash 30 to 40% of my strength. Dongbo Shuang did not dare to fight. The gap between them was too obvious. He was a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. No matter how talented he was merely a ruler who could kill ordinary void gods. If he met another powerful void god at the origin birth realm, he could not do anything. Unless he could comprehend the apocalyptic second sword, that was 100 times more complex and profound. But the difficulty of this apocalyptic second sword was something that some void gods could not comprehend. In the history of the Great Void Heaven Temple, there was only a single ruler who could do so. One could see how difficult it was. This battle made Dongbo Shuang understand that he could only bully ordinary void gods, or those who were clumsy in combat. It would be troublesome if he met someone stronger. The rest of the journey also proved all of this. In the following years, Dongbo Shuang continued his journey to cultivate. He then sent his incarnations to kill his way into the primal chaos lands to fight. He had killed several void gods, but it seemed that they gradually received news that the void gods had started hiding within the primal chaos lands. Those who remained within the primal chaos lands were the stronger ones. Dongbo Shuang had even met a void unity realm expert. The moment his incarnation descended, an unseen law domain descended, and he was directly captured alive. Fortunately, it was just an incarnation. With a thought, the incarnation dissipated. The other party used the incarnation to attack his soul. He had the protection of the God-light scripture, and the Voidwalker's hidden secret. Terrifying. Shuang understood that experts at the Void Origin Birth Realm were not people he could fight against. As for those at the Unity Realm, there was no need to talk about them. Time flowed, and in the blink of an eye, more than 3 million years had passed. Dongbo Shuang had only sent his incarnation over every time, and he had relied on his survival talisman to hide far away. But his reputation had also started spreading amongst the superpowers in these primal chaos lands. You are that cultivator brat who only dares to use his incarnation to fight? In the sky above a primal chaos land, 3 black-robed Dongbo Yings were currently attacking a humanoid void creature. This humanoid void creature had a jade-green armor. His skin was black, and he had the appearance of a male. His control of the void was not any weaker than the true body of Dongbo Ying. This humanoid void creature could not kill Dongbo Ying within a short period of time, but the 3 incarnations of Dongbo Ying could not injure him at all. But Dongbo Ying was happy to fight. He is a good opponent. I can temper my spear techniques. The 3 incarnations were frantically attacking. You can't kill me. Even a void god at the Unity Realm would find it hard to kill me. This jade-green armored black-skinned male was willing to fight. He was gaining experience from the profound battles of the rulers in front of him. He was similarly growing. Brat, not bad. You are a ruler, yet you can fight against a void god to this extent? Following that, a voice sounded. A silver-robed male descended. This was a silver-robed male. He wore a strange metallic combat boots and had a saber on his back. He descended without any warning and directly clawed at that jade-green armored void god. It seemed like an ordinary claw, but strangely, the jade-green armored black-skinned male could not evade it at all. He wanted to retaliate, yet his head was still grabbed. Pung! Hong! Pooh! The silver-robed male relied on his hands and legs to trample on his opponent. He would occasionally use his knees to strike, his palms to strike, and his elbows to strike. These seemingly ordinary techniques were filled with mysteriousness that shocked Dongbo Ying. The other party's combat techniques were far more profound than the apocalyptic first sword. Naturally, this silver-robed male, Dongbo Ying, was able to discern that he was a void god. I can't kill you? The silver-robed male was slightly startled. You can't kill me. Even void gods at the Unity Realm have a hard time killing me. The jade-green armored void god growled. He was furious that he was being trampled on. But his body was extremely strange. There were many layers of space within his body, causing the other party's attack power to be continuously diverted away. I still can't train it. Forget it. The silver-robed male suddenly pulled out the saber on his back. Hua! The saber light flashed. It was too fast. Too stunning. The 3 black-robed Dongbo Ying by the side widened their eyes. He was even trying his best to borrow the mirage world to feel this blade, but it was too fast. The degree of profoundness made him feel suffocated. But it was not impossible. He had comprehended the apocalyptic second sword before. And even though he did not comprehend it, he had some understanding of it. He felt that this blade should be an entire level higher than the apocalyptic second sword. Chong! Only then did the silver-robed male sheath his saber. Letting me use my blade will make your death worth it. The silver-robed male turned to look at Dongbo Ying. The jade-green armored male was still standing there sneering. That blade of yours didn't. Halfway through his words, his body suddenly turned soft. His eyes dimmed, and he fell down. His body was undamaged, though his soul aura had disappeared. Some of his treasures floated out. The silver-robed male waved his hand, and those treasures were kept by him. Brat, you have guts. The silver-robed male chuckled as he looked at Dongbo Ying. Oh right, I am Luo Hai. I am Dongbo Ying. Dongbo Ying chuckled. He had a good impression of the other party. He had finally seen another expert act against these void creatures. Chapter 806. If you don't mind, we can call each other brothers. The silver-robed man Luo Hai said straightforwardly. He had a heroic spirit in his bones. However, because of this personality, he was often schemed against by his good friends when he roamed the outside world. However, he didn't care about it. If he schemed against them, he wouldn't be able to be their friend anymore. Brother Luo Hai. Dongbo Shuang greeted. Luo Hai waved his hand to collect the items. He raised his eyebrows. Brother Dongbo, I killed this void creature. The spoils of war belong to me. Of course. Dongbo Shuang laughed. The next time you kill it, it belongs to you. Let's go. There are no more void creatures in this primal chaos land. Luo Hai said. Oh right, this is your incarnation, right? Where is your real body? I don't have Brother Luo Hai's strength. I don't dare to enter the primal chaos land. My real body is still in the primal chaos void. Dongbo Shuang said. You are really careful. Luo Hai and Dongbo Shui Ying's incarnation left the primal chaos land. They met Dongbo Shui Ying's real body outside. Shuang trusted Luo Hai quite a bit. Firstly, he was a cultivator who was willing to kill these void creatures, and that was worthy of his admiration. Secondly, Shuang was confident of protecting himself against void origin birth realm experts. It was not so easy for a golden-robed disciple from the Great Void Heaven Temple to die. When Luo Hai saw Dongbo Shui Ying's real body, he revealed a smile. A ruler was willing to meet him. This showed that he trusted him. When making friends, one had to look at the person. In Luo Hai's eyes, a ruler who dared to kill a powerful faction in order to save countless lives was someone he was willing to make friends with. You. Luo Hai suddenly widened his eyes. He looked at Dongbo Shuang carefully. You are actually so young? Looking at Dongbo Shui Ying's true body, and based on the soul aura that was radiating from his body, Zhang Shuang could roughly estimate how long he had been cultivating. Clearly, Dongbo Shuang was extremely young. What a loss, what a loss. And here I thought you cultivated for quite a long time, and called you a brother. But now it seems you're so young. Although cultivators don't care too much about age, you're still too young. What a loss, muttered Luo Hai. Brother Luo Hai, how long have you been cultivating? Dongbo Shuang asked with a smile. He couldn't tell how long Luo Hai had been cultivating. Even the Black Gourd's artifact spirit told him. This Luo Hai. I can tell that he is at the void origin birth realm, but I can't tell anything else. He seems to be protected by some kind of treasure. Me? Luo Hai scratched his head and smiled mysteriously. How long have I been cultivating? This question is really hard to answer. Whatever, it is better if you don't ask. Even amongst void gods, my age is considered quite old. I have no choice. I can't compare with you geniuses. Do you know how much suffering I have suffered to reach my current realm? You can't even imagine it. Dongbo Shuang grinned. He had cultivated for a short period, and this brother Luo Hai seemed to be someone who had spent an extremely long time to become a void god. But he was wrong. The experiences of this brother Luo Hai had far surpassed his imagination. Go, let us continue fighting on the next primal chaos land. Only by fighting can we temper our strength. Furthermore, these void creatures should all be killed. Luo Hai was filled with fighting spirit. Alright. Dongbo Shuang was willing to follow along. Luo Hai's void-piercing speed made Dongbo Shuang speechless. Being a void walker who had reached the 20th level of Walker's hidden secret, he should be stronger than the majority of ordinary void gods in terms of void maneuver. But Luo Hai's speed in the primal chaos void was a few dozen times faster than him. Dongbo Shuang estimated that he would have to reach the 27th or 28th level of Walker's hidden secret before he could match up to brother Luo Hai. This void-piercing speed was indeed frightening. Just 900 years. Luo Hai brought Dongbo Shuang to another primal chaos land. Brother Dongbo, kill our way in. Luo Hai looked at that primal chaos land like a wolf looking at its prey. His gaze was different. Are you not going to investigate? Dongbo Shuang said. I'll first send my incarnation over to investigate and understand the actual situation. You still plan on using your incarnation? Luo Hai shook his head. There is no danger in battling with your incarnation. If you don't fight in danger, you won't be able to make your blood boil. Furthermore, the strength of your incarnation should be far weaker than your true body. Only by fighting with your true body can you deal with stronger opponents. Fighting against stronger opponents will be of much greater help to you. But it is easy for me to lose my life if I go with my true body. Dongbo Shuang was slightly speechless. The path of cultivation was long. Luo Hai was so reckless and did not care about danger. Yet this Luo Hai could survive until now. On the path of cultivation, survival was the most important. If he were to be so rash, he would have lost his life if he met an existence at the Void Unity Realm, in the previous Primal Chaos lands. You must be careful when you move alone. But you don't have to worry about it if you follow me. Luo Hai continued. This time when I came out to roam the world, I discovered that many Primal Chaos lands in this region have been occupied. I have decided to kill my way through and kill all of them within 1,000,000 years. Within 1,000,000 years? Dongbua Shuang was dumbstruck. And you want to kill all of them? He had only sent his incarnation in to kill, and only some of the weaker void gods could be killed. He could not even defeat the stronger ones. Furthermore, after news of his existence had spread, those weaker void gods had long gone into hiding, and it was hard for him to achieve any results. But similarly, this superpower would not make a big move against a minor character like him. It was not worth it. But if Luo Hai were to wipe out everything in his path, it would easily attract the strongest expert from this superpower to appear. Rest assured, I'll protect you. Luo Hai saw that this new brother of his, Dongbua, was too cautious and did not dare to be so crazy. He could not help but hesitate for a moment before flipping his hand, taking out a piece of command token. There was a unique square Luo word on the command token. At the same time, a terrifying aura surged out. When Dongbua Shuang saw this command token, it was as if he was looking at an incomparably frightening blade light. This blade light was able to split apart everything. Lord Lo Chung is my father, Luo Hai said with a low voice. You should feel relieved now, right? Dongbua Shuang looked at Luo Hai with shock. Lord Lo Chung? Luo City Lord was at the Primal Chaos Realm, and he was ranked in the front amongst final realm existences. For instance, of the 3 cosmos gods in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, Blade Emperor, Void Primogenita, and Ancestor Bone, only Blade Emperor was slightly stronger than Luo City Lord. The other 2 were weaker than Lord Lo Chung, because he was at the Primal Chaos Realm, yet he could unleash such power. Therefore, in terms of combat realm, according to the information given by their master, the Voidwalker Guqi, they all believed that Luo City Lord's realm was the highest among all the experts. His status was also extremely special. His teacher Guqi did not describe much in the information. Regardless, he was filled with admiration towards Lord Lo Chung. In addition, it was said that Blade Emperor and Lord Lo Chung had a good relationship. Thus, in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, once Lord Lo Chung said his words, not many would dare to disobey. Lord Lo Chung is your father? Dongbua Shuang looked at this silver-robed young man with a blade on his back. He did not dare to think that he would meet someone with such a huge background. Now you can be rest assured, but unless it is absolutely necessary, I do not wish to beg my father. When Luo Hai mentioned his father, his gaze was slightly different. Since the other party had publicized this secret, that command talisman could not be faked. In addition, this place was close to the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, and Luo Hai could cultivate for so long until now. It was impossible for him to be reckless and foolish. Thus, Dongbua Shuang was willing to go crazy. So, the 2 of them turned into streams of light as they charged towards the vast primal chaos land ahead. Dongbua Shuang did not dare to imagine that he could sweep his way so arrogantly. Usually, he would be the first to attack the primal chaos land. If he could not deal with the other party, Luo Hai would let Dongbua Shuang fight to his heart's content before acting. Most void gods were killed by Luo Hai barehandedly. Only a few who were strong in survival or void gods at the Unity Realm could force Luo Hai to pull out the blade on his back. The moment he pulled out the blade, he could fight head-on with a void god at the Unity Realm, and he could even bring Shuang away with him. Within the vast primal chaos land, 5 powerful figures were located in different directions. They had all turned into humanoid figures. Their huge claws and tentacles were grabbing onto the wine cups as they gulped down the wine. Their auras were grand, causing all sorts of phenomena to appear in the surroundings. Some were rolling black clouds, some were roaming with lightning, and some were spreading frost. A silver-robed swordsman and a ruler white-robed teenager. These 2 cultivators actually dared to be so arrogant. A towering figure sat there, He had a few dozen tentacles on his body. His tentacle arm was grabbing onto a wine cup. His huge head solemnly said, "They did not hide their path of slaughter at all. They are practically killing along the nearest primal chaos land. According to their route, they should be here soon." This time, even 2 void gods at the Unity realm would lose their lives, much less the 2 of them. Don't kill them so easily. We must let them howl in pain for 1,000,000,000,000 years, and let them know the price of offending us. They dare to provoke us? Humph. Their killing intent was dense. In the past, there would occasionally be cultivators acting, but most of them were cautious. Those cultivators could guess that this superpower was not ordinary, and the higher-ups did not care. They treated it as a form of training for their subordinates. But this time it was different. The protectors of the primal chaos land were continuously massacred. Furthermore, it was done at an extremely fast speed. This had infuriated the higher-ups behind them, and they had to deal with these 2 daring cultivators as soon as possible. Chapter 807. 2 figures appeared from the void. They were none other than Dongbua Ying and Luo Hai. The 2 of them did not hesitate to fly towards the huge primal chaos great land in front of them. Ha, the 2 of you are finally here. Following that, a vigorous voice transmitted across the vast primal chaos void. Shui Ying's expression could not help but change. Not good. He and brother Luo Hai had finally provoked a true expert from this superpower, after killing so many people. They had not even entered the primal chaos great land, yet the other party had already sensed them. Clearly, they had been waiting for them. Interesting. Brother Dongbua, don't worry. Let's see how many experts they have. Luo Hai was slightly excited as he watched. Dongbua Shuang felt helpless. Luo Hai could fight against Unity Realm existences, but he would be swept away if he faced a Unity Realm expert. Amen. Dongbua Shui Ying's expression suddenly changed. Be careful. They have already set up an array. Furthermore, the area of effect is huge. Luo Hai turned to look too. Behind him was an incomparably vast and cold primal chaos void. Currently, there were countless black clouds rolling. The black clouds covered everything. The area of effect was much bigger than what Dongbua Shuang could sense towards the void. In other words, the area of effect of this array had exceeded the size of a cosmos. There are only a few Unity Realm experts who specialize in arrays who could set up such an array. Luo Hai's expression changed slightly. They have long set up such an array, because they are afraid that we would teleport away. That is why they set up such an array. No, this is an array set up by a primal chaos existence. Luo Hai's expression changed abruptly. At the very least, a portion of this array is refined by a primal chaos giant. Dongbua Shuang saw it too. The rolling black clouds enveloped the entire place. There were actually lightning snakes swimming within the black clouds. Furthermore, there was rain falling from the clouds. Dongbua Shuang could even feel the taste of air. In the vast primal chaos void, it actually caused rain and air to appear in a vast area. This was already a method of creating a world from the primal chaos void. The core components of the array were definitely refined by a primal chaos existence. We're in big trouble. Dongbua Shuang was also panicking. The survival techniques of the Great Void Heaven Temple Golden Robe disciples had never been used to deal against primal chaos realm giants. The protective treasure of the Void Walker, the Black Gourd, was something that he could only rely on to deal with Unity Realm experts who were one level higher, even after he became a Void God in the future. They could not deal against primal chaos existences. What was the primal chaos realm? There were many Void Gods, especially those in the Ancestor-Mother religion system, the Bloodline system, the Devour class system and others. The difficulty of producing Void Gods was relatively low, but the number of primal chaos realm experts, regardless of which cultivation system it was pitifully small. Furthermore, every primal chaos realm giant was famous across the 5 great sacred worlds. Stepping from the Unity realm to the primal chaos realm was a qualitative change in one's strength. For example, in the Laws and Profound Mysteries system, one could develop a miniature universe within their body. Every move he made was filled with the power of the miniature universe. Cosmos gods usually could not deal against primal chaos realm experts unless their true bodies arrived. Most of them were just incarnations. It shouldn't be to the extent where the primal chaos realm comes personally, right? Dongbo Shuang sneered. Even if there are over 200 primal chaos great lands, they shouldn't be placed in the eyes of primal chaos existences. That was what he thought in his heart. But with the surrounding black clouds, lightning, rain, and air, this enormous array was operating on the laws of a miniature cosmos. The difficulty of controlling such an array was extremely high. It would require several Unity Realm experts to work together to control it. Are you afraid now? A deep voice sounded. 5 huge figures could be vaguely seen amidst the black clouds. Afraid? Just a few of you? The silver-robed Luo Hai sneered. Bring out whatever techniques you have. Let me have a look at them. Truly seeking death. A huge hairy hoof claw extended out from the black clouds. It was too huge, and it smashed down towards Dongbo Shuang and Luo Hai at the same time. Seeing this, Luo Hai immediately pulled out the saber behind his back. With a flash of blade light, a resplendent blade light clashed against that huge hairy hoof claw. Dongbo Shuang had long held on to his survival talisman. The golden-robed disciples of the Great Void Heaven Temple had a total of 3 talismans: the Concealment Talisman, Teleportation Talisman, and Defense Talisman. Within such a terrifying array, teleportation was definitely not possible. Concealment would not be of much use either. The only thing he could do was defend. The Defense Talisman could defend against attacks from Unity Realm experts, but it would not work against Primal Chaos Realm experts. But the Black Gourd Treasure Spirit had already told him that there were 5 Unity Realm experts ahead. Hong, the blade light clashed with the huge hoof claw. Luo Hai's body trembled. Traces of blood could be seen at the edge of his mouth, but he still managed to resist. He grinned and glanced at Dongbo Shuang behind him. Old brother Dongbo, rest assured. I've said before that I'll protect you. These fools can't injure you or me. Even by relying on the laws of the array, I can't slap him to death. Activate the full power of the array. Suppress him to death. Go! The huge hoof claw struck out once again. But this time, a world could be vaguely seen appearing on the hoof claw. That world was also filled with rolling black clouds. There were lightning, rain, and air. It was like a miniature version of the entire array. Its power had clearly skyrocketed. Luo Hai snorted coldly when he saw that. The surface of his body suddenly released a golden light. The dimmed golden light was like a light cover that protected Dongbo Shuang by his side, and also protected him. Hua! When the hoof claw slapped down, Luo Hai held his blade horizontally above his head. Hung, this time, the power was clearly much stronger. Luo Hai's body trembled, and a fog of blood spurted out from his mouth. The surrounding golden light also trembled, though it remained intact. Even a Unity Realm expert can be easily killed by us when we work together. How can he, an Origin Birth Realm expert, resist so easily? The 5 Unity Realm Void Gods were greatly startled, but they still continued attacking. Hong hong hong. The hoof claw slammed down again and again. It was already taxing for them to control this array, and adding the power of the array onto the hoof claw was already their full strength. That was why they could only attack with a hoof claw each time. But they were clear that this hoof claw was sufficient to shatter a primal chaos great land. But this silver-robed teenager was actually able to resist against it. He resisted against it continuously for more than a dozen times. Ha ha ha, rest assured. Luo Hai was shaken to the point of spurting out blood. He looked at Dongbo Shuang behind him. Younger brother Dongbo, do you see that? I said that I can protect you, and they can't harm you. Dongbo Shuang watched this scene. At this moment, the status of Luo Hai in his heart rose by a lot. Just based on these methods, you are still far from it. Your grandfather is much stronger than you void creatures in terms of god body. Luo Hai guffawed. Truly a group of trash. A cold voice sounded. It reverberated in every single place, just like a gust of cold wind blowing on their souls, causing Dongbo Shuang and Luo Hai to feel their hearts trembling uncontrollably. In the distance, the 5 Unity Realm experts had already revealed their true bodies. They were currently standing by the side with fear and trepidation, welcoming the newcomer respectfully. One could see a thin gray-skinned male appearing in the distance. His entire body was embedded with several pieces of strange metal that protected his crotch, chest, back, and other areas. He was extremely thin to the point that one could see all the bones in his body. He was just like a skeleton. His eyes, on the other hand, were empty. Dongbo Shui Ying's expression changed. How long had it been since he left his hometown? And he was not even a void god. Yet he had met a primal chaos expert. That time at Lake Heart Island, Sword Master had reached this realm in his hometown cosmos. That was a realm that could even resist against the laws of the starting ground. Luo Hai felt his throat turning dry. Didn't I just kill some brats, and a primal chaos expert has to personally appear? Big trouble. Unless I have to ask my father for help? Chapter 808. In the 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void, there were very few who could reach the primal chaos realm. All of them could intimidate a region and become a forefather, making many cultivators follow them. Furthermore, they had a cooperative relationship with cosmos gods, because the experiences of cosmos gods were not useful to them. Otherwise, there would not be so few who reached the final realm, cosmos god. Just 200 over primal chaos lands. Killing some origin birth realm void creatures would provoke a primal chaos existence. This was something unfathomable. Heaven Weeping Sect Master Dongbo Shui Ying had detailed intelligence. He could recognize this terrifying existence with a glance. He was one of the 3 giants under Ancestor Bone, Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Ancestor Bone did not even blink when a sacred son like Gu Qian Luo died. But towards Heaven Weeping Sect Master, even Ancestor Bone would welcome him with a smile. This was his left and right arm. The arrogant Luo Hai could not speak at this moment. The Heaven Weeping Sect Master looked so skinny that one could see all the bones in his body. However, each and every one of his bones was extremely thick and sturdy. It was as though they were even more indestructible than some void divine weapons. Just by standing there, the aura emitted by his skeletal body caused the 5 Unity Realm void creatures to feel suffocated. There was only a single step from the Unity Realm to the Primal Chaos Realm. Yet the gap in power was bigger than the gap between Paragon and Ruler. A group of trash. I cultivated a secret technique and asked all of you to guard this region. Yet you can't even complete such a small task. Heaven Weeping Sect Master coldly said. The 5 subordinates were nervous and respectful. They did not even dare to defend themselves. Heaven Weeping Sect Master then turned his gaze to the distant Dongbo Shui Ying and Luo Hai. Reaching his level, he would not be so foolish as to casually kill others, because he understood that there were some terrifying existences in the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void that he could not afford to offend. Even Ancestor Bone behind him could not. Even Voidwalker Gu Qi, who was one of the cosmos gods, had to escape in a sorry state because of a huge enemy. He was even heavily injured and nearly died. One could see that the stronger one was, the more careful he would be. Amen. Heaven Weeping Sect Master first looked at Luo Hai, because Luo Hai's body was too resilient previously. Such a powerful body. None of the ordinary void gods under my sect could compare to him. This true god ruler by the side has a slightly more unique body. He should have cultivated a powerful void-related secret technique. There were many secret techniques that allowed one's body to lean towards the void, so the Heaven Weeping Gate Master could not be sure that it was a void walker. 2 brats. The Heaven Weeping Sect Master stretched out his hand. Boom! Countless black raindrops appeared out of thin air. These black raindrops formed into a gigantic hand, instantly grabbing Dongbo Shui Ying and Luo Hai. The 2 of them couldn't escape in time, and even Dongbo Shui Ying couldn't activate the life-saving talisman in his hand. When the Heaven Weeping Sect Master made his move, the formless pressure had already caused his soul to stagnate. Dongbo Shui Ying could feel the pressure from his willpower, making it hard for him to breathe. He was unable to control the true god energy in his body, and his vision was blurry, and his ears were ringing. Death, the aura of death was approaching. Unless I am going to die just like this? Dongbo Shui Ying was unwilling. Even though he was prepared to die the moment he left his hometown cosmos, since the path of cultivation was filled with many dangers. He had just left his hometown and had yet to arrive at any sacred world. It would be too unjust for him to die like this. Furthermore, it was because of Luo Hai's persuasion that Dongbo Shui-ing could sweep through the cosmos so wantonly. Luo Hai was the son of Lord Lo Chung, and with the status of Lord Lo Chung in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, there shouldn't be any problem. Tell me where you came from. This is the only chance for you to survive. The voice of Heaven Weeping Sect Master directly transmitted into the soul of Dongbo Shui-ing. Dongbo Shui-ing felt slightly uncontrollable as he took the initiative to say, I am a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple, Dongbo Shui-ing. I origin Great Land. Luo Hai was slightly unable to control himself. Following that, a golden light flashed in his eyes, and he broke free from his control. Origin Great Land? Heaven Weeping Sect Master was slightly puzzled when he heard that. He felt that this silver-robed teenager might have an even greater origin. But he had never heard of Origin Great Land, even with his status. Could it be the name of an ordinary primal chaos land? There are countless primal chaos lands, and there might be some that are unknown. Regarding the Origin Great Land, Heaven Weeping Sect Master's mind flashed by, following which, his eyes landed on Dongbo Shui-ing. This unremarkable true god ruler had indeed given him a shock. A golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple? Heaven Weeping Sect Master coldly said, How dare you? The Great Void Heaven Temple belongs to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. You, a golden-robed disciple, actually came to the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World to spoil my plans. You are truly looking down on me. Dongbo Shui-ing felt helpless. How would he know that a primal chaos existence would appear? He opened his mouth and wanted to speak, but under the unseen pressure, he was unable to speak. It was clear that Heaven Weeping Sect Master wasn't willing to let him speak. Instead, it was Luo Hai who could forcefully speak. Old brother Dongbo, you are quite formidable. A golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. I've heard that golden-robed disciples are the treasures of the Great Void Heaven Temple, and they would nurture them with all their might. Whoever dares to kill them, the Great Void Heaven Temple would send a large group of experts to kill them. Dongbo Shui-ing could only squeeze out a smile. He could not speak. But what Luo Hai said was right. Golden-robed disciples, they were the treasures of the Great Void Heaven Temple. If some ordinary disciples died while adventuring outside, it would not matter. After all, there were many who died while adventuring. Even though they would investigate the cause of death, they would rarely go to war unless there was a huge injustice. But for golden-robed disciples, the moment they were killed, the Great Void Heaven Temple would treat it seriously. They would not let the matter rest so easily. After all, there were only 11 golden-robed disciples in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple, including Dongbo Shui-ing, and they were the future of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Hence, before killing them, they had to consider if they could withstand the fury of the Great Void Heaven Temple. If Heaven Weeping Sect Master was in the ancient sacred world, he would definitely not be afraid. He would kill him without a second word, because the Great Void Heaven Temple did not dare to kill their way into the ancient sacred world. But the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World was different. The Great Void Heaven Temple had a good relationship with several superpowers in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. They only had a poor relationship with Ancestor Bone. Hence, the moment he was killed, the Great Void Heaven Temple would definitely kill their way over. And Ancestor Bone might not be able to hold on. After all, the current Great Void Heaven Temple was much stronger than it was in the past. Since you dared to offend me, you can stay in my Ghost Weeping Pagoda for 100,000 years. If you survive, I'll let you out on account of the face of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Heaven Weeping Sect Master coldly said. The Ghost Weeping Pagoda was a place he specially used to imprison and torture people. Even void gods would howl in pain after entering. Hence, it was called Ghost Weeping Pagoda. Most would be tortured to death. Under normal circumstances, Dongbo Shui-ing could not hold on for 100,000 years. But Heaven Weeping Sect Master was just saying it. He would torture Dongbo Shui-ing fiercely to vent his anger. Yet he would preserve Dongbo Shui-ing's little life. If the golden-robed disciple did not die, the Great Void Heaven Temple would not go to the extent of going to war over this matter. Ghost Weeping Pagoda? Dongbua Shuang was slightly confused. Even though he knew a lot of information, he did not know what the Ghost Weeping Pagoda was. But it did not sound like a good place. Heaven Weeping, you are really formidable. You actually made a golden-robed disciple of my Great Void Heaven Temple stay in your Ghost Weeping Pagoda for 100,000 years? A cold voice resounded in the vast void. One could see a figure directly coming out from the rolling black clouds. The arrays could not obstruct him at all. He was wearing a luxurious black robe, and his blood-colored hair was fluttering in the wind. His pair of cold eyes caused these void creatures to feel a chill. They loved to kill, but when this existence came, they felt their hearts trembling. Why don't I bring you to my Great Void Heaven Temple Punishment Hall's Devil Purgatory and let you have a taste? His black robe and blood-colored hair were fluttering in the wind. The eyes of the person who came were filled with cold killing intent. He had even started permeating into the soul of Heaven Weeping Sect Master. That was extreme coldness, slaughter, and cruelty. Heaven Weeping Sect Master's expression changed slightly. He snorted coldly before expelling the unseen pressure from the other party. Great Void Heaven Temple, Ancestor Devil? Bang 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 bang. All of a sudden, the bodies of the 5 Unity Realm Void creatures shattered like ice cubes. They exploded into countless ice shards and turned into nothingness. At the same time, the black rainwater hand that was grabbing onto Dongbua Shuang and Luo Hai was instantly frozen and shattered. Dongbua Shuang and Luo Hai were controlled to fly behind the Ancestor Devil. Dongbua Shuang looked at the Ancestor Devil with eyes filled with surprise. Ancestor Devil? The Ancestor Devil stood there. He did not even look at the 5 Unity Realm experts that had died. He said coldly, all the void creatures in the 289 Primal Chaos lands shall be killed without mercy. I will kill these 5 first. Chapter 809. The original array dissipated, because there was no one controlling it. That was an array given by Heaven Weeping Sect Master to his subordinates. Now that Heaven Weeping Sect Master personally acted, he naturally did not care about the array. Ancestor Devil, I've long heard that you are more arrogant. It seems that it is true. You are just a new Primal Chaos expert who has cultivated for a short period of time, yet you dare to provoke me. Heaven Weeping Sect Master was truly angered. Even though he did not attach much importance to the other party, they were still 5 Unity Realm subordinates. For the other party to kill them in front of him meant that he was looking down on him. Reaching his level, he absolutely could not be humiliated. Following his anger, the surrounding void began collapsing. Nevertheless, the surroundings of Ancestor Devil remained calm. He was still coldly looking at the distant Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Ancestor Devil remained cold from start to end. There was not a single trace of ridicule. Ancestor Devil, Heaven Weeping Sect Master began thinking about the detailed information regarding Devil Master. Ancestor Devil was extremely arrogant. It was rumored that when he came to the Great Void Heaven Temple in the past, he looked down on most people from the same sect, and even called himself Ancestor Devil. One had to know that such a title was a little arrogant when he was only at the peak of the Unity Realm. After all, not many dared to call themselves Ancestor in a place like the Great Void Heaven Temple. Dongbua Shuang might be called Monarch Dongbo in his hometown Cosmos, but he would not be arrogant enough to call himself Monarch Dongbo in the Great Void Heaven Temple. When one was weak, he should be more low profile. But Ancestor Devil was different. That time, he provoked a group of Unity Realm experts in the Great Void Heaven Temple to challenge him. The experts in the Great Void Heaven Temple were different from those in the outer world. Firstly, those who cultivated the laws and profound mysteries were generally stronger, and the elites were even more amazing. But none of them won when they challenged Ancestor Devil. Not long later, Ancestor Devil stepped into the Primal Chaos realm. He was ambitious to challenge Lake Heart Island Sword Master. But what made Ancestor Devil helpless was that Lake Heart Island Sword Master had reached the final realm of cultivation when he came out. Cosmos God. If one were to say that Ancestor Devil was an apex genius, he had reached the peak of the Unity realm back in his hometown Cosmos. After entering the Great Void Heaven Temple and obtaining the resources, he quickly transformed into the Primal Chaos realm. That Lake Heart Island Sword Master was an outstanding existence across the 5 great sacred worlds and the Primal Chaos Void. After reading through many books within the Great Void Heaven Temple, he broke through to the Cosmos God realm. He is the Hall Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple's Punishment Hall. I heard that he defeated the Celestial Water Hall's Hall Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple before being easily defeated by the Hall Master of the Inquisitive Sky Hall. Heaven Weeping Sect Master pondered inwardly. He broke through to the Primal Chaos realm not too long ago, and the gap between him and Inquisitive Sky Palace Master is obvious. Actually, Ancestor Devil had reached the Primal Chaos realm for a very long time. It was just that compared to Heaven Weeping Sect Master, who had lived for an extremely long period of time, it was still considered a very short period. It took a long time to describe, but in reality, it only took a flash of thought. The Heaven Weeping Sect Master decided to take action. He did not believe that he, who had cultivated for so many years, would lose to a newly advanced junior. The laws and profound mysteries are just some tricks. I'll let you know how foolish you are. The voice of Heaven Weeping Sect Master reverberated. At that moment, rainwater appeared in the surrounding endless primal chaos void. The black rainwater poured down in torrents. Dongbua Shui-Ying and Luo Hai both felt that the surrounding rainwater was terrifying. Ancestor Devil remained standing there. Endless cold air appeared in the surroundings. The cold air engulfed everything, causing the surroundings to turn into a vast land of ice. Even the rainwater that poured down was frozen. Your miniature cosmos isn't comparable to mine, Ancestor Devil said. Heaven Weeping Sect Master directly extended his hand. The skin on his palm was shriveled. It was like an enormous skeletal claw that directly grabbed over. Everywhere it passed through, there was not a single ripple at all. But Ancestor Devil became solemn. He knew that Heaven Weeping Sect Master had stepped into the Primal Chaos realm for far too long. Perhaps his combat profundity might be ordinary, and he could easily tease him, but his combat strength was extremely strong. Ancestor Devil also slapped out with his palm. His palm was crystal white and vaguely translucent. The interior of his body had long evolved into a miniature cosmos. At this moment, the energy of the miniature cosmos was gathered in his palm. Even his self-created primal chaos realm, myriad devil true body erupted. Dong! Both palms clashed. Many black cracks appeared in the surroundings. Wherever the black cracks were, all energy and space disappeared. Dongbua Shui-Ying and Luo Hai were merely watching by the side. They were even protected by Ancestor Devil, yet they felt their souls trembling. The bodies of Heaven Weeping Sect Master and Ancestor Devil trembled slightly. They took a small step back. What? Heaven Weeping Sect Master was startled. The strength of his body isn't any weaker than mine? How long have I cultivated this body of mine for? Yet, he could sense that the other party was purely using strength to clash with him. He did not use any soft techniques. His strength was considered slightly stronger, even amongst primal chaos giants. It was amazing for him to be ranked above average. After all, every primal chaos expert was an extraordinary existence. My myriad devil true body is still too weak. Even after fusing with the miniature cosmos energy in my body, I can't even suppress Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Ancestor Devil frowned slightly. Heaven Weeping Sect Master has many sinister techniques. Even if I can gain an advantage, it won't be too obvious. He specializes in the laws and profound mysteries, and I don't have any advantage in strength. Even if I use all my techniques, it is impossible for me to win. Heaven Weeping Sect Master was not willing to accept this outcome. But this was reality. All of you can leave. Heaven Weeping Sect Master coldly said. Leave. Ancestor Devil coldly said. I've said before that all void creatures in the 289 primal chaos lands will be killed without mercy. I'll immediately send an order for them to leave. Heaven Weeping Sect Master indifferently said. As for how many you can kill, it will depend on your strength. With so many primal chaos lands scattered across the world, with all the void creatures escaping, how many could Ancestor Devil kill? Killing them is a small matter. You have to destroy that robe that you have always been refining. Ancestor Devil continued. The expression of Heaven Weeping Sect Master changed greatly. Robe? He had spent a long period of time gathering materials to refine it. Currently, he was gathering fear and hatred from over 200 primal chaos lands to fuse into the robe. All of this was to refine a robe that he had always wanted. He had even named it Heaven Weeping Sacred Robe. Using his own name and his own strength, it was enough to increase his strength by more than 50%. Now that the robe was 90% complete, he still needed enough hatred and fear to successfully nurture it. You actually know. Heaven Weeping Sect Master's face was slightly malevolent. It seems like you have been investigating. I have been secretly investigating for a long time. Heaven Weeping Sect Master coldly said. With my temperament, you refining that robe isn't a big deal. But the rules of my Great Void Heaven Temple are there. The item that was nurtured with fear and hatred of countless lives must be destroyed. With just you. Heaven Weeping Sect Master coldly laughed. He didn't care if he had to give up over 200 primal chaos lands. He didn't care if some of his subordinates died. But he had spent too much effort on the Heaven Weeping Sacred Robe. Even if Ancestor Bone asked him to give it up, he wouldn't give it up. Because to an expert, one's own strength was the foundation. That's right, with just me. Ancestor Devil's eyes turned even colder. His killing intent filled the sky. Although he wasn't confident, he still wanted to fight. He wanted to kill this Heaven Weeping Sect Master in a life and death battle. Hung Long, a mysterious aura descended. Countless white bones appeared in the surroundings. The surrounding icy land and black rainwater had all disappeared. All that was left was a boundless white bone land that stretched on endlessly. Dongbo Shuiying and Luo Hai looked at this boundless white bone land and gulped. They could faintly guess what was going on. They saw a figure appearing in the distance. He had white hair that draped over his shoulders. Although he was slightly old, one could tell that he was still very handsome. He was also wearing a gorgeous white robe. The white-haired old man who was wearing a gorgeous white robe looked at Ancestor Devil. Great Void Heaven Temple Ancestor Devil. Bring your men and leave. Oh. Ancestor Devil's eyes were filled with battle intent. Ancestor Bone. Your incarnation can't scare me. 1 against 2. Ha ha ha, this is getting more and more interesting. As he spoke, figures walked out from the surroundings of Ancestor Devil. There was a figure that looked like a blood shadow, a tall and sturdy figure, a figure that was covered in scales, a figure that looked demonic. 6 incarnations were scattered in different directions. His true body was in the center. Ancestor Devil's laughter was a little crazy. The 6 incarnations of my myriad devil true body. Although they haven't been perfected, they can still fight. Come. Dongbo Shuiying and Luo Hai held their breaths behind Ancestor Devil. It was fine that the two of them had provoked Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Ancestor Devil had appeared. Now even the ultimate existence Ancestor Bone had sent an incarnation over. Father, have you arrived? The commotion of the battle is getting bigger. If I am not careful, I will be affected. Luo Hai transmitted a message to his father. Previously, when Heaven Weeping Sect Master had extended his hand to capture them, he had immediately transmitted a message to ask for help. Ha ha ha, I have arrived long ago. Great Void Heaven Temple Ancestor Devil is quite interesting. Let's watch the show first. A voice rang in Luo Hai's mind. Chapter 8:10. Luo Hai instantly heaved a sigh of relief and felt much more relaxed. He even had the mentality of watching a good show. Heaven Weeping Sect Master. I'll let you be complacent for now. In a while you, Heaven Weeping Sect Master, will become the one who weeps. Dongbo Shuiying could not relax at all. Even though Ancestor Devil was powerful, his opponent was a primal chaos expert, Heaven Weeping Sect Master, and an incarnation of the legendary Ancestor Bone. At that moment, the Fiend Ancestor brought along his 6 incarnations, his battle intent surging. The luxurious white-robed elder shook his head and laughed. He casually sat down and the countless white bones behind him formed a throne. He He sat on the throne and placed his left hand on the glossy white bone armrest. He looked at the distant ancestor devil with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. Ancestor devil of the Great Void Heaven Temple, I have known your Great Void Heaven Temple's tea on you for a very long time. Shouldn't you show some respect to an old man like me? Isn't it just gathering some fear and resentment to nurture treasures? The strong live and the weak die. They are weak, so they deserve to die. If there weren't any rules, I wouldn't care about this either. The devil ancestor's voice shook the countless white bones around him. He indeed believed in the survival of the fittest, which was why he created the dark abyss. He continued coldly. However, my Great Void Heaven Temple, the Void Temple, and many other forces have already set the rules. I am the Punishment Hall Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple, so I naturally have to abide by the rules. According to the rules, the Heaven Weeping Sect Master should be punished. Rules? That's the rule you made. I never agreed to it. The white-robed old man smiled. Furthermore, I've given face to the Great Void Heaven Temple and allowed you to leave with your people. Otherwise, if you come here and ruin my sect's business, you won't be able to leave. You can't leave. Ancestor Devil swept his gaze and looked at Heaven Weeping Sect Master. The Heaven Weeping Sect Master also sneered. That's right. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to. I advise you to leave quickly. That way, you can still live. I'll give you one last chance. Take your people and scram far away. The white-robed old man ordered with a smile. The fiend ancestor's eyes turned cold. Oh, with just you guys? Courting death. The white-robed old man lightly tapped the armrest with his left hand, but his body suddenly turned illusory and solidified again, and his aura began to rise rapidly. The vast and endless white bones in the surroundings gradually changed. Every single bone turned into jade, and a vast and clear operating law began to appear in the surroundings. This was an extremely cold and domineering operating law. The law was extremely majestic, not inferior to the operating law of the universe. The fiend ancestor's expression changed drastically as he looked at the white-robed elder. True body. With his cultivation realm, he also discovered that Ancestor Bone's aura had completely changed. It was no longer an incarnation, but his true body. Too late. Ancestor Bone extended his hand indifferently, and a malevolent-looking black axe appeared in his hand. There were very simple golden patterns on the huge axe, and the blade of the axe was constantly slicing through the void. He casually threw the black axe towards the Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Ancestor Bone's true body is here? Even though Dongbo Shueying was weak, he was able to guess it. His master Voidwalker Gu Qi's information had recorded and described every final realm existence. Ancestor Bone had once used 2 of his ribs as the core, and used various precious materials to finally forge a terrifying weapon, Black Rattan Axe. It looked tyrannical, but in reality, it was an extremely sinister ultimate weapon. Ultimate weapon was also a universe-level weapon. It was also a treasure of the highest level. In terms of strength, Ancestor Bone was at the bottom amongst the final realm existences. However, this Black Rattan Axe of his was extremely famous, and could be ranked at the top amongst the many ultimate weapons. Because the core was 2 of his ribs, only in his hands could it display its strongest strength. Ancestor Bone's most important weapon had appeared, so his true body was naturally here as well. Stop! Ancestor Devil suddenly shouted. Heaven Weeping Sect Master, who had just grabbed the Black Rattan hatchet, was rather excited. He could feel the vast and inconceivable power contained within the Black Rattan hatchet. Actually, it looked like he was grabbing the weapon, but in reality, the power of the weapon was being controlled by Ancestor Bone. He was merely borrowing Heaven Weeping Sect Master's hand to display it. Before this, I asked you to leave but you didn't. Now, you can't even leave even if you wanted to. You still want me to stop? The Heaven Weeping Sect Master sneered. Not only did the demon ancestor stop, he also sent a message to Dongbo Shueying. Dongbo Shueying, I know you are also from the primal cosmos, and you are from my hometown. That is why I accepted this mission and came to see you, my junior. I didn't expect to discover the secret scheme of the Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Now I'm in big trouble. With the true body of Ancestor Bone here, I definitely can't escape. In a while, I will execute a secret technique to send you away. Ancestor Bone will make a move on me, but he will disdain to make a move on you. Senior Demon Ancestor. Dongbo Shuiying was a little anxious. Rest assured, even if you are captured by him, you will at most suffer. Even if you give that old skeleton more courage, he will absolutely not dare to kill a primal chaos expert of my great void heaven temple. Demon Ancestor transmitted. I will now distract the attention of the Heaven Weeping Sect Master before sending you away. Ancestor Bone will disdain to make a move because of his status. The Heaven Weeping Sect Master will definitely obstruct me. Understood. Dongbo Shuiying understood the urgency of the situation. This little friend, how about I send you and Dongbo Shuiying away together? Demon Ancestor looked at Luo Hai. There is no need to care about me. I have my own survival techniques. Luo Hai transmitted confidently. Demon Ancestor was slightly startled when he heard that. At this moment he was still so confident. What was his background? Actually, with the shrewdness of Demon Ancestor, he had already discovered that Luo Hai seemed to be calmer than Dongbo Shuiying. For him to be so calm at this moment, either he was prepared to die, or he had absolute confidence. Demon Ancestor was transmitting with Dongbo Shuiying in the dark while sneering at Heaven Weeping Sect Master. Heaven Weeping, even if you have the Black Rattan Hatchet, you are still not my opponent. Defeat my 6 incarnations first before we talk. The moment he finished speaking, the 6 incarnations around Demon Ancestor immediately turned into streams of light, surrounding Heaven Weeping Sect Master almost instantaneously. Heaven Weeping Sect Master wielded the Black Rattan Hatchet. The edge of his mouth revealed a disdainful sneer. He simply swept his hatchet horizontally. Hua! A very thin black light shadow swept across the 6 incarnations of Demon Ancestor. As this black light shadow sliced across in the shape of a fan, Demon Ancestor was shocked to discover that all 6 of his incarnations were strangely restrained. The unseen restraints were like ropes binding his 6 incarnations. Even when he tried his best to move, his movements became slow. Pooh! Out of the 6 incarnations, 4 of them dissipated after being cut horizontally. Only 2 incarnations condensed successfully after being cut apart. One was a blood shadow incarnation, and the other was a black liquid body. They were the 2 incarnations with the strongest survival capabilities. What? Demon Ancestor was astonished. Although the Great Void Heaven Temple also had ultimate weapons, Forefather Tian Yu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master would occasionally spar with Demon Ancestor. They would control their strength, and it was even more impossible for them to use ultimate weapons. Although Demon Ancestor had the chance to taste the ultimate weapon, the Black Rattan Hatchet was much more terrifying than he expected. You can't escape. The 2 brats behind you can't escape either. Heaven Weeping Sect Master wielded the Black Rattan Hatchet. He couldn't be bothered with the 2 incarnations of Demon Ancestor. He pounced towards Demon Ancestor's true body. You and the 2 brats behind you will soon know what it means to wish for death. Suddenly time came to a standstill. Heaven Weeping Sect Master's Black Rattan Hatchet stopped in midair. Demon Ancestor, who was secretly executing a secret technique, remained motionless. Luo Hai was still smiling as he watched, but his expression froze. Dongbo Shuiying's nervous expression froze as well. In reality, with the realm of Heaven Weeping Sect Master and Ancestor Demon, it was too difficult to affect them with the flow of time. It was even harder to make them freeze in time. Dongbo Shuiying and Luo Hai had even stopped thinking. At this moment, time had stopped for them. Heaven Weeping Sect Master and Ancestor Demon were slightly better. Their souls could still maintain a slower speed of thinking. Who exactly is it? The 2 of them were slightly horrified and shocked. Even if it was a cosmos god, they would not be afraid if it was just an incarnation. Even if the true body of a cosmos god came, it was only due to the gap in strength between them. And it was impossible for the other party to control time to prevent them from moving. That was too horrifying. One could see a figure appearing from the White Bone Great Land. It was a young male wearing a loose indigo robe walking over. Lord Locheng. Heaven Weeping Sect Master and Ancestor Demon immediately understood. Cosmos gods were unparalleled, because they possessed the strength of a cosmos. And Lord Lo Chung was clearly at the primal chaos realm. Yet his realm was too high. His control of the laws and profound mysteries was more terrifying than Forefather Tian Yu and Lake Heart Island Sword Master, who comprehended the laws and profound mysteries at the final realm. His realm had reached an unfathomable stage. In terms of realm, even the faintly strongest existence in the 5 great sacred worlds in the ancient sacred world, as well as other terrifying existences in the open or in the dark, and even Voidwalker Gu Qi felt that Lord Lo Cheng's realm was the strongest. Old Skeleton, the young male wearing the loose indigo robe, Lord Lo Cheng, looked at Ancestor Bone, who was seated on the white bone throne in the distance. Ancestor Bone's expression was slightly ugly. He awkwardly stood up from the white bone throne. Say, how are you going to explain to me? Lord Lo Cheng looked at Ancestor Bone. Chapter 8:11. Ancestor Devil and Heaven Weeping Sect Master couldn't move, and they couldn't hear anything. They could only see that Ancestor Bone seemed to have lowered his stance when facing Lord Lo Cheng. They knew that Lord Lo Cheng was much stronger than Ancestor Bone, much stronger than Ancestor Tian Yu and Void Primogenitor. However, he was still an ultimate realm existence. Even if he couldn't win, he could still preserve his life. Why was there a need to be so cautious? The two of them could see the situation. The time where Dongbo Shuiying and Luo Hai were at was completely still. Ancestor Bone stood up from his white bone throne and tried his best to smile. Haha, Lord Lo Cheng, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet Lord Lo Cheng in such a desolate place. What exactly attracted Lord Lo Cheng? Is it Ancestor Devil? Is it those two brats? It can't be that you are purposely staring at me and Heaven Weeping, right? I am asking you. How are you going to give me an explanation? Lord Lo Cheng looked at him. Ancestor Bone's expression was slightly ugly. Back when I agreed to let you enter the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, and receive the protection of the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, I had already set the conditions. Luo City Lord continued. If Yuan didn't request for my help, would you be able to enter the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World? Now that you have entered Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, you are not abiding by the rules I set? Lord Lo Cheng, Ancestor Bone said. Firstly, I didn't violate your rules. These 200 over primal chaos lands were occupied by void creatures. They were devoured and massacred, causing fear and resentment. All of these have nothing to do with me. You can even look through space-time. I really didn't know about this beforehand. It was Heaven Weeping Sect Master's own idea. Secondly, even though Heaven Weeping Sect Master did such a thing, these primal chaos lands are in the primal chaos void, and not within Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. You can prohibit them from massacring in Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. But in other sacred worlds, or even the primal chaos void, it is hard to prohibit this. Lord Lo Cheng looked at Ancestor Bone and said indifferently, All right, I admit that you didn't know about it beforehand. But when Heaven Weeping Sect Master asked you for help and your incarnation descended, you should have known about this matter, right? Got it. Not only did you not deal with it, you even cried for the heavens? Lord Lo Cheng's eyes were filled with cold intent. Since you have obtained the protection of the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, you better be obedient and forget about those evil methods of yours. Ancestor Bone was a little embarrassed. Even Cosmos gods were not absolutely safe. Voidwalker Gu Qi had been chased to the point where he had nowhere to go. Even the Void Primogenitor could not protect him. Back then, the most primitive ancient saint world was the source of everything. Even though the current ancient saint world was huge enough, it was only 1% of the original ancient saint world. How stable and powerful the ancient sacred world was. But in the end, it was still shattered. The progenitor of the laws and profound mysteries lineage had died long ago. Like Ancestor Bone, he was considered one of the weakest cosmos gods. That time when he offended a huge enemy, he could hide in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World for protection. I also just found out about it. Ancestor Bone said. He was also a little resentful. The Heaven Weeping Sect Master was really an idiot. His subordinates couldn't kill these two little fellows, so why did he have to show himself? He should just let those two little fellows escape. Heaven Weeping Sect Master wanted to act personally. It was fine if he could resolve the matter. Instead, he offended Ancestor Devil of the Great Void Heaven Temple. He wanted Ancestor Devil to leave, yet Ancestor Devil was not willing to. In the end, he begged Ancestor Bone. The place where Ancestor Bone cultivated and closed door was in the primal chaos, void outside the Eastern Unicorn sacred world. It wasn't too far from here. This was also the reason why the Heaven Weeping Sect Master chose this region. Ancestor Bone also placed great importance on his subordinates. At the same time, he held on to a wishful thinking that it was impossible for Lord Lo Chung to know everything. As long as he concealed everything that happened here, the matter would be over, and nobody would be able to find any evidence. But Lord Lo Chung actually appeared just like that. The Eastern Unicorn sacred world was so vast. Why would it be so coincidental for Lord Lo Chung to come here in such a short period? I just found out about it, and didn't think too much about it. Naturally, I will protect my subordinates. Ancestor Bone said. What do you think I should do? Lord Lo Chung looked at him. Ancestor Bone looked at Lord Lo Chung. In his mind, he recalled what Yuan once instructed him. It is best that you don't become enemies with Lord Lo Chung. But you don't have to be too afraid, since he won't easily kill you. He has the strength to kill cosmos gods, but the moment he does, he will have to pay the price. As long as you don't make him truly angry, he won't act against you. To Yuan, Ancestor Bone trusted him. I'm willing to pay 1,000 Origin World Rocks. Also that robe which Heaven Weeping Sect Master refined. Ancestor Bone said. 5,000 Origin World Rocks and that robe of his. I'll forget about this matter. Lord Lo Chung said. Ancestor Bone felt his heart aching. Origin World Rocks were formed after the most primitive ancient sacred world exploded in that horrifying great battle. The origin source energy of the most primitive ancient sacred world scattered in all directions, turning into Origin World Rocks. Every Origin World Rock was extremely precious. A protective treasure like Dongbui Shui Ying's Black Gourd was worth far more than an ordinary primal chaos flying ship, and 500 Origin World Rocks was sufficient. That time, it was not easy for Gu Qi to refine this protective treasure. He had to control a celestial body comparable to the Sun Star. And now, Lord Lo Chung directly asked for 5,000 Origin World Rocks. That was equivalent to 10 protective treasures. Being a cosmos god, Ancestor Bone felt heartache too. All right. Ancestor Bone agreed. Very soon the time stagnation was lifted. Dongbui Shuiying, Luo Hai, Ancestor Devil, and Heaven Weeping Sect Master regained their freedom. Give your Heaven Weeping sacred robe to Lord Lo Chung. Ancestor Bone took the initiative to say. As for the matter of him giving 5,000 Origin World Rocks, that was done in secret. He could not do it openly, or else it would be too embarrassing. Heaven Weeping Sect Master widened his eyes. He felt anxious. Forefather. He transmitted anxiously. Forefather, why is there a need to be afraid of Lord Lo Chung? With you around, even if we can't defeat him, we can still escape. I can escape, but it is just a matter of a thought for him to kill you. I can't even save you in time. Instead of killing you, I merely asked you to take out the Heaven Weeping sacred robe you refined. It is already me giving up my face to persuade you. Ancestor Bone transmitted. Heaven Weeping Sect Master felt that it was logical too. After all, he could not even move in front of Lord Lo Chung. But the price I paid. Heaven Weeping Sect Master was unwilling. I have already instructed you to do these things further away from the Eastern Unicorn sacred world. Who asked you to be so close to it? Ancestor Bone transmitted. You can only blame your bad luck for encountering Lord Lo Chung. Heaven Weeping Sect Master felt helpless. Why did he meet him? He sent his subordinates to do these things, and he hid in the dark without others knowing. Ancestor Devil had investigated for a long time before discovering this. This time, he had just appeared, and Lord Lo Chung appeared? Alright, survival first. I'll help you refine treasures in the future. As for doing such things in the future, it is better to stay as far away from the Eastern Unicorn sacred world as possible. Ancestor Bone transmitted. Alright. Heaven Weeping Sect Master could only nod his head. Previously, He was afraid that someone would mess things up. He felt that he would have a backing if he was closer to Ancestor Devil's seclusion grounds. Who would have thought that when Lord Locheng appeared, even though Ancestor Bone managed to preserve his life, he still had to pay a huge price. Very quickly, Heaven Weeping Sect Master handed over the gray robe that contained boundless resentment and fear before leaving with Ancestor Bone. Lord Locheng casually kept the robe after receiving it. "You brat, you are begging me to take action so quickly." Lord Locheng smiled as he glanced at Luo Hai. "Let's go. Follow me back." "So he is Lord Locheng's junior," Ancestor Devil then said. "No wonder Lord Locheng appeared here so coincidentally." Luo Hai smiled at Dongbo Shuang. "I didn't lie, right? He is my father. I have already sent a message to him, and he has already arrived. It's just that he is not in a hurry to take action. I originally wanted to see the strength of the new Punishment Hall Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Who would have thought that Ancestor Bone would actually give his black rattan hatchet to his subordinate?" Lord Locheng shook his head. "Previously, when the Sword Master of the Great Void Heaven Temple came to my place, he even praised you." Ancestor Devil only revealed a slight smile but did not say anything. Sword Master? This was the opponent he viewed as his entire life. "Dongbo Shuang, let's return to the Great Void Heaven Temple," Ancestor Devil said. "Senior Ancestor Devil, I have something to ask Lord Locheng," Dongbo Shuang said. Lord Locheng was stunned as he looked at the white-robed youth in front of him. "Oh, what's the matter?" Lord Locheng asked. "I would like to ask if there are any treasures that can allow Stage 4 world deities to transcend," Dongbo Shuang asked. Lord Locheng's status was extraordinary, and his realm was extremely high. His horizons were definitely not something he could compare to. He was not that thick-skinned to ask for treasures. But if he were to ask for information, with Brother Luo Hai around, Lord Locheng should be able to answer him. Even if Lord Locheng was disdainful to answer, he would not lose anything. "Transcend?" Lord Locheng was slightly stunned. He revealed a smile and looked at Dongbo Shuang. "For your family?" "Yes." Dongbo Shuang nodded. Chapter 8:12. Hearing Dongbo Shuang's question, Ancestor Devil could not help but shake his head slightly. Luo Hai frowned too. As for Lord Locheng, he looked up at the vast primal chaos void above. Mortals will experience birth, age, sickness, and death. Transcendents have a limit too. Even deities and world deities could not transcend in the river of time, and they would eventually die over time. Only by transcending the river of time could they enjoy eternal life. But even if they transcended, they could not resist against the power of the primal chaos void. Other than a few who have secret techniques and unique treasures, most would have to become void gods before they could survive in the primal chaos void. Void gods have many enemies too, even those at the origin birth realm, unity realm, and primal chaos realm, who broke through to become final realm cosmos gods similarly have to fight with each other, and are restricted by the supreme law. Lord Locheng looked at Dongbo Shuang. Thus, quite a few cosmos gods have fallen in history. Dongbo Shuang was startled. He asked why Lord Locheng said all these for Stage 4 world deities to transcend. "These are the laws." Lord Locheng looked at Dongbo Shuang. "The supreme law exists everywhere. If there were no laws, how could the world withstand the longevity of all sentient beings? For Stage 4 world deities to transcend, they would have to rely on themselves to cultivate and comprehend. Even if there are some treasures, they would be used to aid in cultivation. It would allow your soul to become more ethereal during cultivation, and the effect would be better." Lord Locheng said. "You are just a little fellow who isn't even a void god, yet you want to help your loved ones transcend? You are thinking too much. It is better for you to cultivate properly." Ancestor Devil added from the side. "Life and death are common sense. You have cultivated till now, yet you cannot see through this?" "I can see through it, and I have to do my best too," Dongbo Shuang said. "Younger brother Dongbo, it is too difficult to rely on external force to transcend," Luo Hai muttered. Dongbo Shuang's eyes brightened. "Too difficult?" That meant there was hope. Lord Locheng looked at the young man in front of him and said, All rules leave behind an opportunity. From what I know, there are 3 ways for a universe god in the 4th heaven to transcend with external power. 3 methods. Dongbua Shuang was getting excited. First, in the Ancestor Mother world of the 5 great sacred worlds, the Ancestor Mother world can nurture an embryo. When the embryo has just formed, the soul can enter it and rely on the embryo to break out of its shell. The moment it is born, it will immediately transcend. But its weakness was absolute loyalty to the Ancestor Mother. Even if the Ancestor Mother asked him to commit suicide, he would not resist. Lord Loqing said. Dongbua Shuang was dumbfounded. That method might seem like transcendence, but in reality, he would become a loyal servant of the Ancestor Mother. Secondly, it would be the Ancestor Sorcerer of the myriad ancient sacred world. The Ancestor Sorcerer researched the myriad of living beings and was able to create the Heart of Eternity. As long as one could fuse the Heart of Eternity into one's soul, it would be able to help one's soul forcefully transcend the river of time. Luo City Lord said. Dongbua Shuang became excited as he listened. Third, in the ancient sacred world Sacred Master. The Sacred Master has a unique fruit tree, the Origin World Fruit Tree. The fruits he nurtures are mystical, and eating one will allow one to transcend. Lord Loqing said. Both the Eternal Heart and Origin World Fruit have no repercussions. Hearing this, Dongbua Shuang could not help but feel an intense desire rising within him. It is too difficult for Wu Zhu to refine the Eternal Heart. According to what I know, he has only refined 3 of them over the long years. 2 of them were for his loved ones and good friends, and the last was for a trade with Blade Emperor. Lord Loqing chuckled. For the sake of obtaining that Eternal Heart, Blade Emperor and Wu Zhu worked together to kill a cosmos god. Wanting to get Wu Zhu to refine another one? I can't even imagine what price he would have to pay. The Origin World fruit is extremely rare. With the arrogance of the Sacred Master, he is not willing to give it to outsiders. He would at most bestow it to his subordinates who have contributed greatly. According to what I know, the Sacred Master has only traded 2 Origin World fruits with other cosmos gods. Luo City Lord looked at Shuang. Hence, even if a cosmos god wishes for an Origin World fruit, it is something he could not obtain even if he wished for it. Dongbua Shuang turned pale when he heard that. He knew Sacred Master occupied the ancient sacred world, and was faintly the strongest existence across the 5 great sacred worlds and primal chaos void. Wanting to get an Origin World fruit from him? Ancestor Mother was extremely powerful too. Ancestor Mother and Jiezhu were second only to the Sacred Master in terms of strength, and were considered the top 3 existences. Wu Zhu was similarly ranked at the forefront, and was close to Ancestor Mother and Jiezhu. These were the most famous and terrifying existences. Some cosmos gods have sealed their loved ones and good friends before they reached the end of their lifespans, stopping time. Ancestor Devil coldly said. They also desire to allow the most important people in their lives to transcend. But that is exactly what they want. Dongbua Shuang felt an unseen pressure. Then why was it so difficult for existences who cultivated to the final realm to obtain the Origin World fruit? Other than that, there are some treasures that can aid in cultivation. Lord Loqing said, You don't have to ask about these. Your Great Void Heaven Temple will definitely have records of some treasures that can aid in cultivation. They are quite mystical, and are extremely helpful to cultivation. If your comprehension ability is good, you can rely on them to transcend. Dongbua Shuang nodded. He knew that many treasures that could aid in cultivation were more valuable, the more mystical they were. It was something that a puny ruler like him did not dare to hope for. Luo Hai, it is time for us to leave. Lord Loqing looked at his son. Younger brother Dongbua, what you said is very troublesome to me. I can't help you. Luo Hai walked over to the side of Dongbua Shuang. In the future, you can come to the Star City to find me. Definitely, Dongbua Shuang said. Lord Loqing chuckled before bringing his son to teleport away. Even though he felt that this brat called Dongbua Shuang was quite talented, given his current status and vision, he did not care too much about this brat, who was not even a void god. The primal chaos void was extremely cold. Dongbo Shuang did not feel it previously, but now, he could not help but feel a strand of coldness in his heart. Eternal heart and origin world fruit were too high and unattainable. Wanting to rely on external forces to transcend was too difficult. When your family dies along with the cosmos reincarnation, you will get used to it over time, Ancestor Devil coldly said from the side. Dongbo Shuang frowned at that moment. No matter what, he would do his best. There was still a long time before the epoch of his hometown cosmos ended. It was sufficient for him to grow. Even if he could not get the eternal heart or origin world fruit, it was fine for him to work hard to get some precious treasures that could aid in cultivation. After all, his wife and son's comprehension abilities were quite good, and they had long become stage for world deities. Perhaps on the day he returned, his wife and son would have transcended by themselves. Go. Let us first kill our way through the surrounding primal chaos lands. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuang through the void. His speed was much faster. Just spending 30 years or so, he had traversed through more than 200 primal chaos lands. Even though Heaven Weeping Sect Master had given the order in the dark, for the sake of concealing his identity, he had directly contacted the core Unity Realm experts. He then asked these Unity Realm experts to pass down the orders. Due to the distance between the primal chaos lands, the orders were passed down from one to the other. Because he had killed 5 Unity Realm experts previously, and Dongbo Shuang and Luo Hai had killed void gods, it resulted in a break in the transmission of information. In addition, some void creatures were still sleeping soundly. When Ancestor Devil swept through, he actually discovered more than 60 void gods. As for ruler realm void creatures, there were even more. Naturally, he killed all of them without mercy. Who? Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuang forward through the primal chaos void. Ahead is the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. Ancestor Devil stopped. An incomparably huge land appeared ahead. It was so big that one could not see its boundaries. It was much bigger than the cosmos itself. The outermost layer of this incomparably vast continent had layers of clouds. As the clouds flowed, there were countless rainbow-colored lightning creatures flying within them at all times. Just by getting close, Dongbo Shuang felt that his flying speed was being affected. If he were to enter the sacred world, his speed would most likely be very slow. The Eastern Unicorn Sacred World is too far away from the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. It is impossible for us to travel through the endless primal chaos void. That would take too long. Ancestor Devil said, we will enter the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World and seek the help of a primal chaos realm expert. He will teleport us back to the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World. Dongbo Shuang nodded. The majority of cosmos gods could not teleport through an ultra-long distance. Instead, only a few primal chaos realm giants who cultivated unique systems could do it. Asking for their help to teleport would require a huge price. These primal chaos realm giants could become the wealthiest group of primal chaos realm experts just by collecting the travel fees. He wrote slowly. Today he wrote even faster. Chapter 8:13. You haven't entered the 5 great sacred worlds before, right? Ancestor Devil suddenly thought of something. He turned to Dongbo Shuang. Amen. After leaving my hometown cosmos, I have always been rushing through the primal chaos void. Dongbo Shuang said. Ancestor Devil nodded. South, he directly brought Dongbo Shuang and turned into a stream of light, charging towards the surface of the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. There were many lightning creatures in the layers of clouds. There were even some extremely terrifying creatures hidden within. But Ancestor Devil, being a primal chaos realm giant, did not care about anything. In just a breath of time, he passed through the layers of clouds and saw the boundless land. Currently, the sky was bright, and there was an enormous sun slowly rising in the distance. That's right. The sun and moon were not unique to his hometown cosmos. Legend has it that during the most primitive ancient sacred world, there was an incomparably blazing and explosive sun star, and an incomparably cold and reserved moon star, revolving around the ancient sacred world. Ever since the most primitive ancient sacred world exploded, the few sacred worlds that were created after that, all of them had a sun and moon revolving around them, like Dongbo Ying, and the others in his hometown cosmos. Forefather Tian, you had also created a smaller sun star and moon star when he created them. Clearly, it was more suitable for life forms to reproduce and survive under the illumination of the sun and moon. Such a huge sun star. Dongbo Shuang felt startled. The sun star that rose at the easternmost point of the sacred world was huge and vast. The sun star in his hometown cosmos could not compare with it. The laws here are too strong. Dongbo Shuang sighed inwardly. The sacred world was extremely stable, and the operating laws were stronger. Only cosmos gods who reached the final realm could destroy it. Even so, it was merely a possibility, since it was not easy for cosmos gods to destroy a sacred world. For example, the final 13th sword of the 13 apocalyptic swords could indeed damage the sacred world. If he used it a few more times, the entire sacred world might be destroyed. However, that was already the most terrifying and forbidden attack of Patriarch Tian Yu's. Patriarch Tian Yu would not use such a forbidden attack unless it was absolutely necessary. This move placed a huge burden on his body and the cosmos in his body. The laws are too strong, and the suppression on me is too strong. Previously, when Dongbo Shuang approached the Eastern Unicorn sacred world, he could already feel the suppression. Now that he had entered the Eastern Unicorn sacred world, the suppression of the laws was even more exaggerated. Even his vision and hearing were greatly suppressed. Phew! Dongbo Shuang tried to fly, but in a flash, he flew back to his original spot. So slow. His current speed was so slow that he could only fly 5 to 6 miles in the blink of an eye. Mirage World? Void Shift? I really can't teleport anymore? Shuang felt helpless. He knew all of this before he came. The laws of the sacred world were too powerful. After all, there were as many experts as the clouds here. And there were many true gods and void gods too. There were a bunch of primal chaos realm giants, and several cosmos gods standing at the peak. According to what he knew, even the void walkers who specialized in movement had to become a void god before they could achieve short-distance void penetration, which was equivalent to teleportation. As for those who did not specialize in it, they would have to reach the unity realm before they could teleport. As for ultra-long distance void penetration that could allow them to travel, primal chaos realm giants could naturally do it. Very few existences at the unity realm could do it too. As for true god rulers, he had never heard of anyone who could penetrate through the void within the sacred world. The laws here were too strong. True gods can still fly, but world deities can't even do so. Dongbo Shuang looked downwards. There was a city below, and there were many residents within. Currently, the area covered by his mirage world was too small, just 1,000 meters. By relying on the senses of the void, he could barely sense the aura of the residents within the city. The residents within the city, the weakest were transcendents. In other words, those babbling children or infants drinking milk were all transcendents. Ordinary adults, or even slightly more powerful youths were all deities. Clearly in the sacred world, those who reached adulthood could become deities. But under the suppression of the powerful laws, their destructive power was extremely low. And there were very few world deities. There were at least 1 million residents within the city, yet there were only a few dozen world deities. Furthermore, they could not fly. Even though they are suppressed by the laws, they are at least transcendents when they are born, and deities when they reach adulthood. Their lifespans are very long. Dongbo Shuang said. They are much better than the countless mortals in my hometown cosmos. They are indeed much stronger. But they face many tribulations too. Ancestor Devil looked downwards. He indifferently said, the Devour class cultivation system is the easiest and simplest. It is also the most widespread. Thus, some Devour class cultivators would suddenly act and devour a large number of living beings. It is very common for them to devour an entire city. Thus, the life forms in the sacred world usually have a lifespan of more than 100 million years. But they have to survive until that day, Ancestor Devil said. Alright, have you experienced it? Do you have some understanding of the sacred world now? Amen. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Go. Ancestor Devil brought along Dongbo Shuang. They began tearing apart the void forcefully. Previously, when they were rushing through the primal chaos void, Ancestor Devil did not seem to be affected at all. But in the sacred world, the disturbance was clearly much bigger. See La. A distorted time-space maelstrom spanning 300 meters appeared in front of them. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuang directly into the time-space maelstrom. Approximately 500 kilometers away from Ancestor Devil and Dongbo Shuang, a tall and sturdy figure with a big beard suddenly flew into midair from a residence. He looked at the time-space maelstrom that appeared in the distance. This big bearded muscular male had golden eyes. He said with slight astonishment, "This is a time-space maelstrom for them to travel? Is it in existence at the primal chaos realm? I actually missed out on such a huge opportunity." The sacred world was too big. Flying slowly, many cultivators including void gods would never have the chance to see a primal chaos realm giant in their entire lives. The days of traveling were extremely dull. As they continued moving forward in the time-space maelstrom, Dongbo Shuang could not help but split the majority of his concentration to research his wind ripple path. Over 30,000 years later, we are here. Ancestor Devil, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke, causing Dongbo Shuang to wake up. We are finally here. Dongbo Shuang sighed in his heart. Being a primal chaos realm giant, he could travel through a long distance in the sacred world. Yet he had to spend 30,000 years before reaching the place where he wanted to meet his friend. If he could not travel through a long distance, it would simply be hopeless to travel in the sacred world. Of course, the weak could use the teleportation arrays to travel, but that would require treasures as a toll. They flew out of the time-space tunnel. Ancestor Devil and Dongbo Shuang appeared in front of the towering Black Palace. Flying is prohibited in the surroundings of the Ancestor Desert Palace. At that moment, two protectors wearing simple armor rushed into the sky. They brought with them a terrifying and sharp killing intent. The armor on their body was covered in lightning. Dongbo Shuang could not help but feel his heart palpitating. He felt that these two protectors could threaten his life. Amen. Dongbo Shuang was slightly startled. He could see that these two protectors were puppets. Great Void Heaven Temple, Ancestor Devil. Ancestor Devil indifferently said, "Tell your master that I am here to pay a visit." The two protectors were slightly startled. Yes. The two of them bowed. Even though flying was forbidden around the Ancestor Desert Palace, primal chaos realm existences at the same level as their master were not affected by this rule. Below, there was currently a large group of cultivators gathered. The majority of them were true gods, and there were a few void gods. They were seated cross-legged on the ground. Some of the newly arrived cultivators were even told, "It isn't time yet. There are still 16 days before the Ancestor Desert Palace recruits disciples. This time, they are only recruiting 100 disciples, 10 void gods and 90 true gods. I know that there are more than 10,000 true gods and void gods rushing over. So many? I have experienced untold hardships and suffered many hardships. I have nearly lost my life several times and spent 1.3 billion years. I have used all my treasures and relied on the time-space teleportation array before finally arriving here. According to the legends, it is relatively easier to enter the Ancestor Desert Palace. Who would have thought that there are so many cultivators rushing over from just 100 disciples?" These cultivators were all sighing. They could only casually sit on the ground and wait. There was a benefit to being outside the Ancestor Desert Palace. It was safe. Nobody dared to come here and wantonly devour lives. Naturally, the Ancestor Desert Palace only allowed outsiders to gather here when recruiting disciples. Usually, they would be chased away. Chapter 8:14. These cultivators, who were gathered on a piece of desolate land outside the Ancestor Desert Palace, discovered the two figures standing in the sky. Quickly look. They actually dare to fly around the Ancestor Desert Palace? When these cultivators looked up at Ancestor Devil and Dongbua Shuang, Ancestor Devil slightly frowned before emitting an unseen pressure. The cultivators below could not open their eyes at that moment. They could only feel a terrifying suppression on their souls when they saw that figure. They could not help but lower their heads. Regardless of whether they were true gods or void gods, they all lowered their heads. But in their hearts they were even more shocked. His strength is deep and unfathomable. Ancestor Desert is a legendary primal chaos realm expert. Even his disciples and subordinates had to descend from afar before obediently walking into the Ancestor Desert Palace. Those who dare to fly high above the Ancestor Desert Palace should be at the Primal Chaos Realm. Primal Chaos Realm? This is a Primal Chaos Realm expert. Some of the true gods who did not have much experience felt a huge impact on their souls when they looked up. Nevertheless, they could not help but do their best to look up. Following that, the terrifying suppression made them lower their heads. Primal Chaos Realm. I actually have the chance to see a Primal Chaos Realm expert in my life. Some true gods were so excited that they could not control themselves. Primal Chaos Realm experts were all giants in the sacred world. There were very few of them. Even those who could reach the Ancestor Desert Palace would be eliminated in the end. Only 100 of them could become disciples of the Ancestor Desert Palace. But even if they became disciples of the Ancestor Desert Palace, they might not have the chance to see the highest status in the palace, Ancestor Desert. In the sky above the Ancestor Desert Palace, Ancestor Devil remained standing there coldly. Dongbua Shuang stood by the side. Hearing the voices below, Dongbua Shuang could not help but ask, "Is it so hard to join a superpower in the sacred world?" A superpower that could stand tall in a region would at least have a Primal Chaos Realm expert guarding it. Ancestor Devil indifferently said. As for ordinary void gods or Unity Realm experts, they might be killed on that day. If they could not stand firm, they would not be strong enough, and their foundation would not be strong enough. Hence, they could not form a superpower. Dongbua Shuang could not help but nod. For instance, in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, there are 3 superpowers with Cosmos gods, namely Ancestor Bone, Blade Emperor and Void Primogenitor. The demonic ancestor said. The Void Primogenitor is only willing to protect some void creatures, and the few void walkers who have truly received his inheritance. That's why countless cultivators in the saints' world can only dream about becoming a disciple of the Void Primogenitor. Lord Lo Chung is more transcendent. Even though he isn't any weaker than Cosmos gods, he doesn't recruit disciples at all. Ancestor Devil said. So, in the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World, only Blade Emperor, Ancestor Bone, and a few dozen Primal Chaos existences are recruiting disciples. The demon ancestor said. The number of disciples recruited by each faction is relatively small. Compared to the vastness of the saints' world, the number of people who can truly join them is naturally pitifully few. Why don't you recruit more? Dongbua Shuang asked. The various forces are recruiting more disciples, so that they can become stronger. This will be of great help to the countless cultivators in the sacred world. The fiend ancestor looked at Dongbua Shuang. Childish. Dongbua Shuang was taken aback. Why do they want to rely on a superpower? Some cultivation techniques have already been spread out. So why do they still want to join a superpower? The fiend ancestor said. It's for resources. Resources? Dongbua Shuang became pensive. For instance, the ancestor mother religion system requires external materials to improve every single time. Similarly, the bloodline cultivation system requires external materials to aid it too. The strongest warrior system requires external materials to aid their bodies too. The fiend ancestor said, even for the hex and laws and profound mysteries systems that emphasize on cultivation, Hex has to research the myriad existences. They require the help of large amounts of books written by seniors researching on the myriad existences, and all sorts of precious materials to aid them too. Like the laws and profound mysteries system, it is extremely hard to break through. They require the help of many books written by seniors too. The more one understands the laws and profound mysteries, the easier it would be for them to cultivate. Furthermore, Hex and laws and profound mystery systems that emphasize on comprehension ability require external materials to aid them too. Without relying on external materials, they might remain at the Unity realm for their entire life. But with the help of some precious materials, they might be able to step into the primal chaos realm. Ancestor Devil looked at Dongbo Shuang. This is also a system that emphasizes on comprehension ability. It is impossible for other systems to improve without resources. And how many resources can one obtain by roaming the sacred world alone? If one were to rely on a superpower, the superpower would naturally help their disciples obtain the most basic resources. Ancestor Devil said, because they have to fork out resources, there is a limit to how many disciples a superpower can recruit. Dongbo Shuang nodded. Right. Resources. For the sake of Jing Qiu and Yu, he was thinking of ways to obtain precious materials that could aid in cultivation. Furthermore, one has to be cautious when recruiting disciples. Ancestor Devil looked downwards. The 5 great sacred worlds and the primal chaos void aren't calm at all. Many superpowers are fighting in the dark, and even cosmos gods might fall. It is normal to send some spies into the enemy superpowers. Thus, one has to be cautious when recruiting disciples. Dongbo Shuang was startled. You are fortunate that you came from our hometown cosmos. Furthermore, you have passed through the starting ground trial, and directly became a golden-robed disciple of our great void heaven temple. Ancestor Devil said, many cultivators in the sacred world are envious of you. Naturally, those of us who came out from the cosmos are lacking in many cultivation techniques within the cosmos, and the difficulty of cultivation is much higher. In the sacred world, infants are transcendents, and adults are deities. It is comparatively easier for them to cultivate, and there are many different cultivation techniques. It's just that the competition for resources is intense. Naturally, the apex absolute arts aren't easily taught to others. Dongbo Shuang nodded in understanding. Ha ha ha, Ancestor Devil. You just left my place not too long ago. Yet you are here again? A clear voice sounded. A plump figure flew over from afar. He had 6 arms, and his skin was green. He was beaming with joy. Since I'm done with my matters, I'll naturally have to return. I'll have to trouble Ancestor Desert to send me back to the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Ancestor Devil said, Sure. Of course I'm happy to. You are here just for this little fella? The plump Ancestor Devil looked at Dongbo Shuang. I am a golden-robed disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Ancestor Devil nodded. You can bring an additional true God ruler, and I won't add to the fee. Ancestor Devil laughed. You should know the rules. Don't bring too many living beings within your Eden treasure. If it exceeds my control, the teleportation will fail. I know. There will be one more than before. Ancestor Devil nodded. Are it the same rules? 15 origin world rocks. Ancestor Devil smiled. Dongbo Shuang was speechless when he heard that. How ruthless. A round trip would cost 30 origin world rocks. Based on what he knew, an ordinary primal chaos flying ship would only cost 50 origin world rocks. However, Ancestor Devil had massacred and collected many treasures on those 200 over continents. This trip was definitely a profitable one. Hurry up. Ancestor Devil waved his hand, causing many rocks that were emitting strange colors to fly over. Those rocks seemed to contain a power that could stir the hearts of others. Even their souls were trembling, and they had an intense urge to eat them. Origin world rocks, the most primitive ancient sacred world exploded. The origin energy scattered in all directions, and some turned into origin world rocks. It was said that they were extremely important to cosmos gods. Follow me. Ancestor Devil laughed. He was relatively passionate. This teleportation business of his was targeted towards these experts. The weaker ones could not take out sufficient origin world rocks. Otherwise, even if they could, they would not be willing to. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuang and Ancestor Devil into a spacious palace hall. There was an array at the center of the palace hall. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuang into the array with great familiarity. Wang. Ancestor Devil's eyes shot out 2 light pillars that directly enveloped the region of the array. A unique power enveloped this place. Dongbo Shuiying held his breath. Ancestor Devil belonged to the ancient cultivation system. Ancient cultivation referred to the most primitive ancient sacred world, and the earliest cultivation system. There were strong and weak ancient cultivation systems, and they specialized in all sorts of strange techniques. Some could easily detect what happened far away. Some could easily travel through different sacred worlds, and some could even prophesy with an accuracy of more than 80%. Regardless, all sorts of strange techniques originated from the ancient cultivation system. For instance, currently the strongest existence who occupied the ancient sacred world, Sacred Master, belonged to the ancient cultivation system. Wang. Dongbo Shuiying saw it. He saw the surrounding space distorting and collapsing. Another distant space was collapsing too. The two started connecting, forming an extremely short void corridor. An unseen energy brought Ancestor Devil and Dongbo Shuiying into the void corridor. Even though the surrounding space would occasionally compress and pull, the scene in front of them changed almost instantaneously. Hong Long, the surrounding space regained its normalcy. Ancestor Devil and Dongbo Shuiying appeared in midair. Ancestor Devil swept his gaze around before snorting. The teleportation is slightly off track. We still have to hurry on our way. Because the distance was too far. It was impossible for teleportation to be absolutely accurate. Selah, a space-time vortex was torn open, and Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuiying into it. This time it was very fast. In just half a day, they exited the space-time vortex, and they were still in midair. Ancestor Devil brought Dongbo Shuiying along as they continued flying. Suddenly, they touched something, and formless ripples appeared in the surrounding void. The two of them passed through it and disappeared. Dongbo Shuiying only felt the scene before him change, and he knew that he had entered a special space. In the distance, there were many towering mountains floating in midair. On these mountains, there were caves and palaces. In the center of these floating mountains, there was a huge floating continent. On this continent, there was a chain of palaces, and in the center was an incomparably dazzling palace. The palace was majestic, and its radiance covered every corner of the space. Great Void Heaven Temple, here I come. Dongbo Shuiying muttered to himself, and a smile appeared on his face. In the distance there were still flying cultivators, and they were all members of the Great Void Heaven Temple. Some of them turned their heads over, and when they saw the disciplinary hall master, Ancestor Devil, they were so frightened that they did not dare to look anymore. However, they were also muttering, "There seems to be a true god ruler beside the disciplinary hall master? Who is it? I've never seen him before." Chapter 8:15. Dongbo Shuiying followed Ancestor Devil as he flew. At the same time, he was observing some of the distant cultivators. With a glance, he could tell that they were all true gods. According to what I know, there are very few void gods within the Great Void Heaven Temple. It cannot even compare to the number of void gods in the 200 over primal chaos lands. Dongbo Shuiying thought. In the vast primal chaos void, there were many cosmos and many primal chaos lands. There were many void gods. Within the sacred world, there were a frightening number of void gods. But there were very few void gods within the Great Void Heaven Temple. Even if a true god disciple became a void god, if they did not reach a sufficient level, they would be placed outside the Great Void Heaven Temple in the outer world's primal chaos cities. One had to know that the Great Void Heaven Temple was one of the 3 great holy grounds of the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Many life forms were crying and shouting to join the Great Void Heaven Temple. For the sake of increasing their ruling power, 12 primal chaos cities were constructed within the 7-star oceanic sacred world. Every primal chaos city intimidated a region. They were used to supervise the sacred world, recruit disciples, facilitate transportation, and many other purposes. Those relatively weaker void gods were placed outside the primal chaos cities. But even those weaker void gods were void gods who comprehended the laws and profound mysteries. They had obtained the guidance of the Great Void Heaven Temple, and their combat power far surpassed the ordinary void gods in the outer world. Look, Ancestor Devil brought Dongbua Shueying towards a floating island. There were 12 cavern dwellings on the floating island. They were of different sizes. This is the Yuxing Island, where the golden-robed disciples stay. Ancestor Devil pointed at those cavern dwellings. According to the position of the cavern dwellings, the highest cavern dwelling is the number 1 golden-robed disciple. The second is the one ranked second at that time. Going down the order, the 10th at the bottom is the golden-robed disciple, who was ranked 10th at that time. There are 2 empty cavern dwellings left at the bottom, and they are prepared for the golden-robed disciples, who were born within the cosmos. Like Snow Eagle, the trials you experienced in your hometown cosmos are much simpler than the challenges within the Great Void Heaven Temple. Thus, the benefits you obtained are much lesser. Understood. Dongbua Shueying nodded. Palace Master. A voice came from afar. On this island, there was a gray-robed middle-aged man bowing respectfully, but he was merely a puppet life form that reached the Void God realm. This is the golden-robed disciple Dongbua Shueying. Ancestor Demon looked down and ordered. From today onwards, he will be your master. This old servant greets master. The gray-robed middle-aged man immediately bowed to Dongbua Shueying. Snow Eagle, he will tell you all the rules of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The demon ancestor said, the Sword Master was supposed to meet you. After all, you came from our hometown. However, he and the Patriarch are both in seclusion now. I reckon that the Patriarch and the Sword Master will come out of seclusion during the Golden Robe Disciples ranking battle. It won't be long. There are only 30 million years left before the next ranking battle. Over 30 million years? Dongbua Shueying tensed up slightly. Even if you lose this time, you can always win it back the next time. The demon ancestor nonchalantly said, there's no need to feel embarrassed. The most talented batch of true God disciples in the Great Void Heaven Temple are amazing. It is considered a success for you to enter the top 20 this time. The demon ancestor chuckled after saying that. Cultivate properly. In our hometown cosmos, other than the Sword Master and me, only you have the highest innate talent and comprehension ability. Our lineage is still too weak. I will definitely do my best. Dongbua Shueying said. The demon ancestor nodded. He immediately took a step and turned into a stream of light before disappearing into the distance. Only then did Dongbua Shueying mumble. Entering the top 20 is considered a success? Master, the servant by the side said, I have transmitted a large amount of information within the Great Void Heaven Temple to Master. Very soon, Shueying's communication talisman immediately received a large amount of information. Even though he had understood many things back at his hometown cosmos, for instance, there was no information regarding the current generation of true God disciples. Oh, Dongbua Shueying first checked the information regarding the true God disciples. The moment he did so, he was speechless. Oh, Dongbua Shueying first checked the information regarding the true God disciples. The moment he did so, he was speechless. Across the 5 great sacred worlds and the vast primal chaos void, in terms of combat techniques and the degree of profoundness of techniques, the Great Void Heaven Temple was ranked at the top. Hence, other than a large number of true gods who desired to join, even the Primogenita Island and Jade Light Sacred Territory, which had a good relationship with the Great Void Heaven Temple, had sent their disciples to join. There were also several primal chaos giants from the 7-star oceanic sacred world, who sent their disciples they valued to enter the Great Void Heaven Temple. The Great Void Heaven Temple had also released a small portion of the quotas to absorb these geniuses. The competition between the true God disciples was extremely intense. Of the 10 great Golden Robe disciples, if we include those who were Golden Robe disciples before being demoted to Violet Robe disciples, there are a total of 19 of them. Dongbua Shueying was slightly speechless. There are also some who have never been Golden Robe disciples before, but their combat power is extremely close. There are about 10 who have hopes of rushing into the top 10. Those who were Golden Robe disciples had fought their way into the top 10 before obtaining a Cosmos-ranked Absolute Art. After getting into the top 10, they would obtain a Cosmos-ranked Absolute Art and all sorts of resources. making them even more talented. It's just that under the waves of attacks from the latecomers, there would always be a genius who rose and kicked the golden robe disciples in front down. These 19 people, in addition to the 10 behind them, they could easily kill void gods. And Dongbui Shuiying had relied on the simple trials of his hometown cosmos to get through. This difficulty was something that could only be passed by more than 100 true god disciples in the Great Void Heaven Temple. Hence, even Ancestor Devil, who had harsh requirements, felt that it would be a huge success for Dongbui Shuiying to get into the top 20. After all 19 of them were golden robe disciples before. Getting into the top 20 was terrifying. Even though I have cultivated the apocalyptic first sword, those who could become a golden robe disciple have their own cosmos absolute art, and have most likely grasped it. With my current combat power, I am not completely confident of getting into the top 10. Dongbui Shuiying's eyes flashed with a strand of sharpness. But I have to get in, because only those who entered the top 10 in the internal challenges, and those who entered the top 10 for the first time, would be bestowed with the supplementary spiritual fruit by the Great Void Heaven Temple. This was a rare treasure used to aid in cultivation, and was worth 50 origin world rocks. One had to know that even though he had killed many void creatures, and even some void gods, the total treasures he collected would barely be worth a single origin world rock. Naturally, being a golden robe disciple, the value of his survival talisman and void god weapon were very high. The protective treasure, the Black Gourd, was also very precious, but it was impossible for him to sell it. More importantly, the supplementary spiritual fruit was unique to the Great Void Heaven Temple. Usually, it would only be bestowed to new golden robe disciples. Even though there was a price for it, it could not be bought. I have to get it. Even if I don't use it, I can give it to Jing Qiu or Yu Er. Dongbui Shuiying was determined to get the supplementary spiritual fruit. Hong Long Long, the door to the cavern dwelling was pushed open. This cavern dwelling was slightly smaller. It had a small courtyard and 3 simple rooms within. It was the lowest among the cavern dwellings of the golden robed disciples, but it was enough to make a large number of true god disciples envious. Dongbui Shuiying entered his cavern dwelling. He began looking at the place where he would live from now on. When Dongbui Shuiying pushed open the door to his cavern dwelling, he was seen by several true god disciples flying in the distance. Golden Robed Island? Another golden robed disciple? Even though the island where the golden robed disciples resided was called the Wisdom Island, many ordinary true god disciples were more used to calling it the Golden Robed Island, since that was the goal they desired. 10 great golden robed disciples. Why is there another one? Oh right, wasn't there someone called Dongbui Shuiying, who came from the primal cosmos? He is Dongbui Shuiying. These disciples discuss fervently. Some of them even started to inquire about him. Because of Dongbui Shuiying's arrival, many places within the Great Void Heaven Temple had started to record his information. For example, his soul aura, his identity as a golden robed disciple, his authority, etc. Therefore, the true god disciples with some background were able to find out about him very quickly. It's Dongbui Shuiying. I heard that the ancestral devil personally brought him back. A kid from the inner cosmos actually got lucky and became a golden robed disciple. Many true god disciples felt jealous and indignant. This was because most of them had grown up in the sacred world. They looked down on the mini cosmos within the primal chaos void. It's fine. The next challenge is coming soon. At that time, I will come and challenge him. Immediately, a true god disciple said. Dongbui Shuiying understood his cavern dwelling before leaving. He turned into a stream of light and flew towards that floating great land at the center. Clearly, he was not willing to waste time and wanted to head to the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. That time when the Sword Master came to the Great Void Heaven Temple from his hometown cosmos, he had flipped through many books in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall before entering closed-door cultivation. After that, he directly broke through to the Cosmos God realm. Ancestor Devil also came here to read through many books in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. To those who came from the cosmos, the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall was the most important place. This was where all books collected by the Great Void Heaven Temple over the years were stored. Are you senior disciple brother Dongbo Shuang? A voice transmitted over. Dongbo Shuang was slightly startled. He stopped. To the distance, there was a relatively handsome violet-robed male standing there. Chapter 8:16. That's me. I wonder why this junior disciple brother has stopped me. Dongbo Shuang? Dongbo Shuang asked. The violet-robed male chuckled. I am Mingyu. I have just heard that a new golden-robed senior disciple brother has arrived. That is why I rushed over. Senior disciple brother is a golden-robed disciple. So why don't you reveal your golden robe? Within the Great Void Heaven Temple, golden-robed disciples, violet-robed disciples, and even the inner hall elders would reveal their robe color. Oh, that's right. I have just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple, and did not notice it. Dongbo Shuang casually answered. The white robe on his body immediately changed color, revealing the true appearance of his golden robe. Previously, he was just keeping a low profile. He was not willing to reveal his identity as a golden-robed disciple and attract too much attention. But since the other party had taken the initiative to ask, he would reveal it. The violet-robed disciple looked at Dongbo Shuang's golden robe, revealing a look of envy. This junior disciple brother has experienced many challenges from true God disciples. Yet my combat power has always been lacking. I am not fated to get into the top 10. I've heard that senior disciple brother Dongbo Shuang, Punishment Hall Master, and Sword Master came from the same cosmos. Furthermore, you are a golden-robed disciple, so your combat power should be extraordinary. I wonder if senior disciple brother Dongbo Shuang is willing to spar with me. Spar. Dongbo Shuang revealed a grin. It's just a small matter. Do we do it now? This junior disciple brother was quite polite. Sparring was nothing much, and it could be considered seeing the standard of a true God disciple of the Great Void Heaven Temple. The violet-robed disciple continued. In my Great Void Heaven Temple, there would usually be a wager when fighting on the battle platform. I am willing to bet 10 Origin World Rocks. 10 Origin World Rocks? Dongbo Shuang could feel a strand of hostility from the other party. Most ordinary void gods would not have so many treasures. This junior disciple brother in front of him might be a true god ruler, but he was more generous than void gods. Dongbo Shuang immediately said, Junior disciple brother is indeed generous. It's a pity that I do not have so many Origin World Rocks. Haha, as a golden-robed disciple, how could senior brother not have enough treasures? The purple-robed disciple Mingyu smiled and said, Senior apprentice brother, you should have a void god weapon. Its value should be sufficient. You want me to bet my void god weapon? Dongbo Shuang's voice was very calm. This void god weapon of mine is worth more than 10 Origin World Rocks. The purple-robed disciple smiled and said, I know. The value of the void god weapon obtained by the golden-robed disciple is around 20 to 30 Origin World Stones. Although the wager is slightly higher than mine, in our Great Void Heaven Temple, when the strong and the weak compete, the strong will usually bet more. Those who were weaker would have less to bet on. After all, I'm more likely to lose in such a competition. Why? Senior brother, you came from the same universe as Ancestor Demon and the Sword Master. Even I have the guts to take the gamble. Don't tell me senior brother doesn't have the guts to do so? The purple-robed disciple continued. Dongbo Shuang looked at this junior apprentice brother in front of him. As a golden-robed disciple that came from his hometown cosmos, other than the Black Gourd, he wouldn't sell his normal treasures like life-saving talismans. The only thing that he could trade for was his void god weapon. His long spear was a high-grade void god weapon. Its value was close to 30 Origin World Stones. On the surface, it was his most valuable treasure. He didn't expect that he would be targeted the moment he arrived. Junior apprentice brother Mingyu. Dongbo Shuang looked at him and said, From what I know, you were ranked 26th in the previous True God Disciple Challenge. The purple-robed disciple was slightly startled. He nodded and said, Yes, I'm still far from the top 10. I was lucky enough to become a golden-robed disciple from my hometown cosmos. If I were to compete with junior apprentice brother, I'm afraid I might lose to you. Dongbo Shuang shook his head and sighed. Let's forget about this competition. Senior apprentice brother, you are a golden-robed disciple. You are also from the same cosmos as Ancestor Devil and Sword Master. You must be incredible. Don't you have even this bit of confidence? The purple-robed disciple said. If that's the case, I would really look down on you. The other disciples would also look down on you. Dongbo Shuiying's expression turned cold. Look down on me? Dongbo Shuiying looked at him with cold eyes. You want to bet a high-grade void god weapon with a mere 10 origin world stones? I think you must be dreaming. If you want to bet with me, that's fine. Prepare 25 origin world stones. During the True God Disciple Challenge, we can also take the chance to compete. Whoever wins the bet will get to keep the wager. If you are too poor and can't take out 25 origin world stones, it's best for you to hide far away. Dongbo Shuiying laughed coldly. He then transformed into a stream of light and flew far away. He didn't even look at this purple-robed disciple. This purple-robed handsome man watched expressionlessly as Dongbo Shuiying left. Ha ha ha, Brother Mingyu. Looks like this Dongbo Shuiying isn't so easily deceived. From afar, the other purple-robed disciples flew over as well. I thought he was too confident and arrogant, daring to compete with me. Mingyu shook his head lightly. Looks like he is very cautious. Didn't this Dongbo Shuiying say that he would take out 25 origin world stones to compete with him? Why? Does Senior Ming you not have the confidence to defeat him? Could it be that Senior Mingyu is unable to take out 25 origin world stones? How much do you need? I can borrow it. However, I need a mortgage. Those purple-robed disciples said. Oh, I believe that if you guys go and challenge him, Dongbo Shuiying will also accept the challenge. Mingyu said calmly. You guys can prepare 25 origin world stones. At that time, during the ranking battles, you can challenge Dongbo Shuiying. As for me, there's no need for that. So Mingyu flew away as soon as he finished speaking. The other group of purple-robed disciples sneered when they saw this. He wanted to deceive this golden-robed disciple from the cosmos. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. This Mingyu is still so sinister. These purple-robed disciples casually spoke. Everyone who dares to challenge him. He is from the same cosmos as Ancestor Demon and Sword Master. If we were to compete now, I would still have some confidence. However, he wants to delay until the ranking battles. One must know that Sword Master and Ancestor Demon had read countless manuals in the Wanxiang Palace. After making up for their lack of knowledge, their strength had a huge improvement. Sword Master had even reached the ultimate cultivation realm after going into seclusion. This Dongbo Shuiying might not have much knowledge regarding the laws and profound mysteries, but as long as he reads countless manuals in the Wanxiang Palace, he would be able to swiftly make up for his lack of knowledge. I believe that his strength would definitely improve greatly during the ranking battles. He might even be able to enter the top 20. I have no confidence against such an expert. Amen. Indeed, he might improve greatly. These violet-robed disciples came from all sorts of backgrounds. Some were sent over by the Primogenita Island and Jade Light Sacred Territory, and some had gone through many selections within the sacred world before they could enter the Great Void Heaven Temple. The competition within the Great Void Heaven Temple was exceptionally intense, because the Great Void Heaven Temple believed in the strategy of elites. They did not care about quantity and place more emphasis on quality. After all, they could casually send out a hall master, or even just an incarnation to slaughter a large number of void gods. Thus, those who could become a violet-robed disciple here were all extraordinary. They were all cunning and astute. Even though they disdained those brats who came from the cosmos because of their origins, this was also because they came from the Earth domain. Just like Ancestor Demon who came from the same cosmos as Dongbo Shuiying, he would naturally be more protective towards his fellow countrymen. These violet-robed disciples did not dare to belittle the potential of Dongbo Shuiying. They would compete now. Quite a few violet-robed disciples dared to, but if they dragged it until the True God Disciple ranking battle, they would no longer be confident. After all, Ancestor Demon and Sword Master were in front of them. In addition, Dongbo Shuang had passed through the Golden Robe Disciple trial within the cosmos. His potential was extremely high, and the moment he made up for his lack of experience, he would definitely improve greatly. South, Dongbo Shuang directly flew towards the central floating continent towards the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Amen. Dongbo Ying's gaze could not help but be attracted by a tall pagoda far behind the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. This pagoda stood there majestically, and its height was comparable to that of the Great Void Palace Hall. Star Pagoda. Dongbo Shuang thought. Star Pagoda. The information given to him by the Great Void Heaven Temple was relatively simple, but the information given to him by his teacher Voidwalker Guqi was much more detailed. There was a total of 6 star pagoda. They were the Great Void Heaven Temple, Primogenita Island, Jade Light Sacred Territory, Void Palace Hall, Blade Emperor City, and Lord Locheng's Star City. They were the 3 sacred grounds of the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World, and the 3 sacred grounds of the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World. These 6-star pagoda were personally refined by Lord Lo Cheng and gifted to the 6 sacred grounds. From this, one could tell that the relationship between the Eastern Unicorn Sacred World and the 7-star Oceanic Sacred World was rather good. To the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall, Dongbo Shuang did not think any further and flew towards the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. The Myriad Elephant Palace Hall was made of wood. It occupied a huge area, but its height was not considered high. It was only about 20% of the height of the Star Pagoda and the Great Void Palace Hall. At the entrance of the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall, there was a black cat sleeping. Black cat. According to the information, this is a primal chaos realm puppet life form. It isn't any weaker than the wild black dog in my hometown. Dongbo Shuang thought. To be able to give a puppet life form the strength of a primal chaos realm life form, Forefather Tian Yu's refinement skills were indeed impressive. Such a puppet life form's value was extremely high, far surpassing the black gourd and a cosmos. Hence, to be able to leave behind a wild black dog to guard his hometown cosmos, Forefather Tian Yu's actions were indeed impressive. Back then, even Gu Qianlua was completely fooled. Meow, the black cat raised its head and looked at Dongbo Shuang. It spoke with a gentle voice. Kid, don't go up to the 4th level. You can casually browse through the first 3 levels. Yes, senior. Dongbo Shuang chuckled as he replied. The black cat immediately buried its head and continued sleeping. As for Dongbo Shuang, he stepped into the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. The Myriad Elephant Palace was vast and vast. Countless books were placed here. The number of precious books here was countless times more than those in the Devil Mountain cosmos. After all, this was the core of the holy ground. All the books collected by the Great Void Heaven Temple over the years would be placed here. Dongbo Shuang was filled with desire. He understood that the best teachers in the Great Void Heaven Temple would be the countless books within the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Many of these books were extremely expensive, and some were even unique copies. For instance, after the primogeniture of the laws and profound mysteries fell, some of the books he left behind were unique copies. Calming his heart, Dongbo Shuang focused his mind. He soon found a book that described about mirage. He immediately picked it up and started reading. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Chapter 8:17. As he flipped through the book in his hand, the words and diagrams on it all turned into illusory worlds. Dongbo Shuang stood in front of the ancient bookshelf and flipped through it. Every time he flipped a page, a large amount of information would be transmitted into his mind. These were all the insights of the seniors who had walked further in the Tao of Mirage. Preaching the Tao was very difficult. Because the Tao was illusory, it was extremely difficult to describe it clearly. Thus, taking a major power as a master was very different from taking a paragon or a hegemon as a master. The higher one's realm was, the clearer their descriptions would be when they were imparting the Tao, allowing the younger generation to understand it better. Of these scriptures, some were written by ordinary void gods and had been examined by the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall to be qualified to be placed in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Some were written by experts at the Unity realm, or even the Primal Chaos realm. There were even scriptures left behind by Forefather Tianyu, Sword Master, or other experts who were not from the Great Void Heaven Temple faction. The books were placed on different floors according to their rarity. Dongbo Shuiying was neither arrogant nor rash. He read it patiently and pondered over it carefully. Time flowed like water. Dongbo Shuiying was a golden-robed disciple from a certain universe in the Primal Chaos Void. Ever since he arrived at the sacred land Great Void Heaven Temple, he had been staying in the Myriad Elephant Palace, flipping through the books as though he was possessed. That kid called Dongbo Shuiying, who came from the same universe as the demon ancestor, and the sword master, has been in the Myriad Temple all this time. A man and a woman were chatting in midair. Yes, always. It was likely that he had not read many books on laws and mysteries in the past. The moment he saw the countless books in the Myriad Temple, he was naturally engrossed in them. Senior Sister Fengyan, are you also curious about him? Haha. Many of the true God disciples of the Great Void Heaven Temple have mentioned him. I really want to compete with him. I want to see how strong this kid, who came from the same universe as Ancestor Demon and Sword Master, is. Golden-robed disciple? The purple-clothed silver-eyed woman snorted coldly. Senior Sister Fengyan, in the primal cosmos, apart from the Devil Ancestor and the Sword Master, there are no other outstanding people. They are not worth mentioning. The Demon Ancestor and the Sword Master are said to be from the same universe epoch. They fought and sharpened each other's talents. How can this Dongbo Shuiying compare to the Demon Ancestor and the Sword Master? Help me arrange a battle with him and think of a way to get him to agree, the silver-eyed woman said. Senior Sister, don't make things difficult for me. In these 100,000 years, there were already many disciples who wanted to challenge him. But this person called Dongbo Shuiying had always been engrossed in reading the ancient records, and all of them said, take out 25 Origin World rocks and challenge him during the True Divinity Disciple battle. Right now, he is not accepting any challenges. If you want to fight, you have to wait until the True God Disciple battle. Even you can't move it. No, he's extremely stubborn. The silver-eyed woman nodded, but there was a hint of anxiety in her eyes. She was ranked 15th previously, hence her position among the True God disciples was rather high. However, she was unlucky and had never entered the top 10 before. I have to enter the top 10 to obtain the treasures, and even the universe-level absolute arts. The silver-eyed woman thought to herself. The universe-level absolute arts were the ultimate arts of the palace. They were priceless and represented the pinnacle of the laws and mysteries system. It's too difficult for me to enter the top 10 with my strength. I have no confidence. If I can obtain Dongbo Shuiying's void weapon, that's worth 20 to 30 Origin World rocks. I can exchange it for some treasures that can aid in cultivation. Maybe it can allow my strength to improve by another level. The silver-eyed woman gritted her teeth. Damn it, those gold-robed disciples all have the palace's absolute arts, but I don't. To win, it's too hard. This was the biggest problem for every true God disciple to enter the top 10. The gold-robed disciples were already monsters and had the palace's absolute arts. And the purple-robed disciples didn't have the palace's absolute arts. To defeat the previous gold-robed disciples and enter the top 10 was incomparably difficult. But it was precisely because of this that the new golden-robed disciples were very dazzling. Naturally, there was another method. The moment the original golden-robed disciples broke through to the Void God realm, there would be an empty spot, and things would be much easier. Senior Disciple Brother Dongbo Shuiying, I've heard that Senior Disciple Brother is formidable. Are you willing to fight with Junior Disciple Brother? We won't bet on it. A voice transmitted by his ears. Dongbo Shuiying, who was seated cross-legged in the corner, with a flask of wine by his side, looked up. In front of him was a smiling white-skinned young man. This young man had a single red horn on his forehead, and his eyes were filled with red light. He was extremely courteous. There's no need for a bet. It's just a spar. If you want to spar, then wait until the True God Disciple battle. Dongbo Shuiying said. I don't have the time now. Saying that, Dongbo Shuiying continued reading the books. He would occasionally take up the flask of wine by his side and drink a mouthful. This young man stood by the side for a while before retreating helplessly and awkwardly. There were very few void gods in the great void heaven temple, and the weaker ones would be banished to the primal chaos city outside. Instead, there were many true god disciples. Even though the selection process was harsh, the sacred world was ultimately vast. On the other hand, the great void heaven temple was willing to take in a few more people, and even allowed them to compete fiercely with each other. And now, the true god-disciple battle was nearing. Even if there's no bet, he should be thinking of using this opportunity to see my strength. Dong Shuang thought. Knowing oneself, and knowing the enemy would be of great help to him in his challenges. Even though everyone felt that Dong Shuang was not qualified to fight against the top 10 golden robe disciples, they also felt that Dong Shuang would become stronger after reading through many books in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall, and he might be able to kill his way into the top 20 to 30. This was an opponent that could not be underestimated. Thus, they began arranging for some weaker ones to probe his strength. What a pity. My target isn't the top 20 to 30, but the top 10. Dong Shuang thought. I must get the supplementary spiritual fruit. For the sake of victory, Dong Shuang would naturally not be foolish enough to reveal his combat techniques at this moment. He wanted to give his opponents sufficient time to think of ways to deal with him. In the future, he would reveal his techniques during the true god-disciple battle. It was hard for those geniuses to find ways to restrain him within a short period. Because the higher one was ranked, other than a few geniuses, the gap between them would become smaller. Perhaps he might win if he could restrain the other party. Dong Shuang did not return to his cavern dwelling. He did not befriend anyone. Instead, he was wholeheartedly reading through many books in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Currently, he was mainly reading through books related to the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, and Tao of Ripple. He would occasionally reveal a joyous look as he drank happily. Occasionally, he would feel puzzled and ponder. Occasionally, he would be enlightened. His understanding of the laws was increasing and expanding at a frightening speed. Indeed, they came from the cosmos, and their understanding of the Tao was indeed lacking. Because most cosmos epics did not have void gods, Unity Realm experts, Primal Chaos Realm and Cosmos gods to guide them. In the past, Dong Shuang's strongest technique in his hometown Cosmos was Bloodblade. Bloodblade specialized in the Tao of Bloodblade, Tao of Shadow, and Tao of Destruction. They did not overlap with Dong Shuang at all. Thus, when cultivating within the cosmos, there would be guidance when he was a world deity. But after becoming a powerful existence, he would have to rely on himself to fumble about in a dense fog. It was common for ordinary true gods to be stuck for hundreds of billions of years, or even trillions of years. Paragon ruler. It was common for one to be stuck in any realm, unable to advance an inch, because they could only rely on themselves. But similarly, because they could only rely on themselves to ponder, every step they took was steady. For instance, Sword Master to cultivate to the primal chaos realm within the cosmos was simply unfathomable. After arriving at the Great Void Heaven Temple, he flipped through many books. In the past, he encountered many problems while immersing himself in cultivation, and he even comprehended more from the collisions of inspiration. Finally, he reached the final realm, after entering closed-door cultivation. Ancestor Devil had reached the peak of the Unity Realm, before stepping into the Primal Chaos Realm, after arriving at the Great Void Heaven Temple. Naturally, most cultivators would stop at the True God Realm, Paragon Realm, and Ruler Realm by relying on themselves. It is time to stop. Suddenly one day, Dong Shuang closed the book and placed it back on the ancient bookshelf. He felt that he had gained too much knowledge regarding the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, and Tao of Ripple in his mind. Some were even comprehended from the seniors, but some of the seniors had some contradictory parts in their records. I have to sort out all these comprehensions and truly absorb them before fusing them into my own Tao. Dong Shuang understood this point. Even though he had not finished reading the book, it was sufficient for the time being. He picked up the wine flask beside him and walked out of the Myriad Elephant Palace. This was already 23 million years after he arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple. He had spent so much time just flipping through some books that were suitable for him. To the Palace Hall of Time. Dongbo Shuang understood that the Palace Hall of Time was the most suitable place for him to cultivate. At that moment, he turned into a stream of light and flew out of the Myriad Elephant Palace, heading in the direction of the Palace Hall of Time. Chapter 8:18. The Palace of Time was also located on the floating continent of the Great Void Heaven Temple. It was a rather unique black triangular pagoda-shaped building, and when one got close to it, even space-time seemed to distort slightly. Dongbo Shuang flew to the entrance of the Palace of Time. The entrance of the palace was filled with darkness and nothingness. Dongbo Shuang bowed respectfully. "Senior, I need time to accelerate by 100-fold. "All right." A boundless voice resounded. At the same time, a suction force came from the entrance of the palace, directly wrapping around Dongbo Shuang. With a so, Dongbo Shuang was pulled in. Dongbo Shuang felt his vision turning illusory, following which he discovered that his surroundings had changed. Planet. Dongbo Shuang looked at the planet he was currently on. It was a desolate and extremely cold planet. The entire planet seemed to be made of ice, and there were even snowflakes floating on the surface of the planet. This was a planet with a diameter of 8,000 li. To Dongbo Shuang, it was indeed too small. Back in his hometown Cosmos, the monarch Dongbo residence, a planet of this size could only be used as a decoration in his residence. Dongbo Shuang raised his head. In the dark void, there were many other planets. Many planets were revolving around ancient and mysterious arrays. Formless energy was being guided to gather on each of the planets. As the only life form on the planet, Dongbo Shuang also felt the formless energy gathering towards him. This feels really strange. Dongbo Shuang felt his body becoming much more relaxed, and even his soul felt much more ethereal. No wonder the price is so high. The effects of cultivation here are much better than my golden-robed disciple cave. Dongbo Shuang praised. Palace of Time. This was a cultivation ground within the Great Void Heaven Temple that could accelerate time. It was extremely difficult to accelerate the time of experts without affecting the stability of the laws and profound mysteries in the surroundings. For example, when Dongbo Shuang and the rest accelerated time in their hometown, it would affect the laws of profound mysteries. The Devil Mountain Cosmos had maintained the stability of the laws, but that was an enormous cosmos refined by the primogenitor after paying a huge price. Even void gods lived within the primogenitor Devil Mountain, because the higher the level of life, the greater the burden on the Devil Mountain cosmos. The Palace of Time was a supreme treasure refined by forefather Tianyu. The price to activate it was rather high, so if one wanted to come in and cultivate, they would have to pay with treasures. A true god ruler, if time was accelerated 100 times, would require an origin world stone for 100 million years. Of course, this 100 million years was equivalent to 10 billion years inside the Temple of Time. Void gods had a time acceleration of 100 times. 100 million years would require 5 origin world rocks. At the Unity realm, 100 times the time, 100 million years, 25 origin world rocks. At the Primal Chaos realm, 100 times the time, 100 million years, would cost 100 origin world rocks. And this was only a time acceleration of 100 times. If time was accelerated by 1,000 times, the cost would immediately skyrocket by 100 times. As for a time acceleration of 10,000 times, the cost was too frightening. Primal Chaos Realm experts were forbidden from accelerating time by 10,000 times, because the burden on the Palace of Time would be too great. For instance, the Devil Mountain Cosmos was even weaker than the Palace of Time. Void gods had to live within the primogenitor Devil Mountain frequently, and Unity Realm experts had to stay within the primogenitor Devil Mountain, or leave the cosmos. Primal Chaos Realm experts would definitely leave the cosmos. Naturally, the 100 million years mentioned here was usually when experts were pressed for time and needed to raise their strength within a short period. Only then would they enter the palace of time. For instance, if they cultivated for 1,000,000 years, the cost would naturally be much lower. Being a golden-robed disciple, I have 1,000 contribution points. At most, I can cultivate for 10,000,000 years, Dombo Shuang thought. Contribution points. Within the Great Void Heaven Temple, those who accepted missions or wrote scriptures that were qualified to be placed in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall would be rewarded with contribution points. For instance, if one had a high status, a golden-robed disciple, an inner hall elder, or a hall master would be rewarded with contribution points every 1,000,000,000 years. 10,000 contribution points were equivalent to an Origin World rock. One could purchase many items within the Great Void Heaven Temple. But there was one point: within the Great Void Heaven Temple, Origin World rocks could be exchanged for contribution points. But contribution points could not be exchanged for Origin World rocks. The Great Void Heaven Temple would only give out treasures and contribution points as rewards. It would not give out Origin World rocks. Dombo Shuiying's time was very precious. He wanted to return to his hometown before the Cosmos epic ended, and allow Jing Qiu and Yu to transcend. Hence, he treasured every single bit of time he had. He was destined to visit the Palace of Time frequently, and this forced him to work hard to obtain more treasures. Dombo Shuiying sat cross-legged on the layer of frost. This planet was desolate, and he was the only living being on it. At this moment, he was pondering over what he had gained from flipping through the countless scriptures in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Occasionally, he would even verify them. Over the past 3,000,000 years, he had gained a large amount of information regarding the Tao. Some were absorbed, and some were tossed aside. This sort of verification and absorption was much slower than flipping through the books. He took a total of 80,000,000 years before he finished absorbing them. Tao. Dombo Shuiying stood on the planet. Looking at the surrounding planets, he could not help but reveal a grin. If I don't understand, I will just not understand. If I am stuck there for 1,000,000,000,000 years, I won't be able to comprehend it. But now that I understand, things will be much simpler. After becoming a ruler in his hometown Cosmos, he cultivated for another 1,000,000,000 years. He had even comprehended the apocalyptic first sword when he left his hometown to roam the primal chaos void. Without anyone guiding him, he had relied purely on himself to fumble about. Currently, after flipping through many books and absorbing them, he no longer had any doubts regarding the ruler realm to the void god realm. The ruler realm lies in purity. The heart must be pure, and the Tao must be pure. Only when the Tao is sufficiently perfect will it be eternal, Dombo Shuiying thought. And the void god realm lies in broadness, inclusiveness, and balance. It belongs to the law system. For instance, the Tao of Mirage was just a Tao, and if one wanted to rely on the Tao of Mirage to become a void god, he would have to absorb many other laws and profound mysteries using the Tao of Mirage to form a law system, with the Tao of Mirage as its core. One had to know that the operating laws of the cosmos were a perfect fusion of many laws. It was not a single Tao. To become a void god, using the Tao of Mirage as the core, one could fuse several other laws and profound mysteries perfectly into it, forming a law system. A chopstick might break easily, but a whole bunch of chopsticks would be much tougher. The moment a law system was formed, the law domain produced would be much more perfect and powerful. It did not have high requirements for other laws like the Tao of time-space or the Tao of extremity. They were like bricks that could be fused into the core of the Tao of Mirage to form a complete system. Amongst the three Taos of Dombo Shuiying, the Tao of Mirage was the most inclusive. In addition to the current foundation of Dombo Shuiying, if he were to truly focus on comprehending it, he was confident that he could break through after spending some time. But the moment he broke through, he would become a void god, and would no longer be qualified to participate in the true god-disciple battle. The supplementary spiritual fruit and other treasures would be gone, and it would be hard to get another if he missed this opportunity. This was the special nurturing given to golden-robed disciples by the Great Void Heaven Temple. Even golden-robed disciples could only obtain it after entering the top 10 of the ranking battle for the first time. I should first focus on cultivating the absolute art. Dongbui Shuiying was not in a rush to break through, using the weaker laws and profound mysteries at a lower level to comprehend a stronger absolute art was also a form of tempering towards his comprehension ability. Comprehension ability would also change along with opportunities and tempering. Dongbui Shuiying's thoughts were placed on the shadowless heavens gathering, 3,000 incarnations, godlight scripture, and the strongest 13 apocalyptic swords. Naturally, he wanted to fuse the apocalyptic first sword with his profound mysteries from the Tao of Ripple, creating a new chapter of Wind Ripple Path. After absorbing the essence of many books, his grasp of the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, and Tao of Ripple became deeper, and he was even confident of reaching the Void God realm. Currently, even the apocalyptic first sword, Dongbui Shuiying could faintly understand part of the reason why forefather Tianyu created it. In the past, he could use it after learning it, but he did not know why he had to create it. Now that his horizons had broadened by a few times, he had some understanding of it. He was also more confident in completing it. Time flowed. Within the Palace Hall of Time, on this lonely planet, 320 million years had passed in the blink of an eye. More than 3 million years had passed in the outside world. After staying here for so long, 320 contribution points had been deducted. I did not think of becoming a void god, but who would have thought that I have comprehended the 21st level array diagram of the Walker's hidden secret? The golden-robed Dongbui Shuiying shook his head with a smile. Fortunately, the Walker's hidden secret was different from the laws and profound mysteries. Even if he comprehended it, he would still have to absorb primal chaos void energy before he could reach the void god realm. As for the laws and profound mysteries, the moment he comprehended it, he would break through. Hence, as long as he did not cultivate it temporarily, he would still be a ruler. The new chapter of Wind Ripple Path has been created, and my strength has temporarily stopped improving. If I were to cultivate the Tao of Mirage, Tao of Slaughter, or Tao of Ripple, I might accidentally break through. I can't hide it from the treasure spirit of the Palace Hall of Time. Dongbui Shuiying shook his head. Let's go out. I've only read through a small portion of the books within the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. I'll continue reading. Senior, Dongbui Shuiying said with a clear voice, I need to leave the Palace Hall of Time. Hong, an unseen time-space energy wrapped around Dongbui Shuiying before teleporting him out. Dongbui Shuiying felt his vision blurring. In the next moment, he was already outside the entrance of the Palace Hall of Time. Thinking about it, it had only been 6 million years since he came to the Great Void Heaven Temple. There were still 28 million years until the true God-disciple battle, and he had plenty of time. Since he could no longer improve his strength, and he could not comprehend the apocalyptic second sword, Dongbui Shuiying decided to return to the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall once again. He continued drinking and flipping through the many books in satisfaction. These were the crystallization of wisdom left behind by experts over the countless eras, whether they were alive or dead. As he read, it was as if he was listening to the guidance of many experts. This sort of harvest made Dongbui Shuiying feel intoxicated. Chapter 819. The Sacred Land Great Void Heaven Temple was extremely lively today. Normally, the temple master and inner hall elders rarely appeared. They were either out on missions or in seclusion. However, all of them appeared today. Even the two temple masters with the highest statuses, Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master, had come out of seclusion. The true God-disciple ranking battle. This was the only large-scale internal competition in the entire Great Void Heaven Temple. It was simply a large-scale event. Golden-robed disciple Dongbui Shuiying, please head to the Hidden World field. The message token received a message. Within the Myriad Elephant Palace, Dongbui Shuiying was slightly startled. He immediately placed the book in his hand back into the bookshelf. The day has finally arrived. He had already read through the books that were more important to him. During these years, he had been flipping through other books. There were even books that described witchcraft, ancient cultivation, and other systems. This broadened his horizons and allowed him to be more prepared when facing other enemies in the future. The 13 apocalyptic swords is truly difficult. Dongbo Shueying muttered to himself. I still wanted to master the second sword in the ruler realm. It seems that I'm still lacking. When he first obtained the 13 apocalyptic swords, the first sword already caused his expression to change. He did not even dare to hope to master the second sword in the ruler realm. However, after flipping through countless books, his horizons and foundation had greatly improved. After cultivating in the Palace of Time for more than 300 million years, he had even successfully fused the first apocalyptic sword with the profound mysteries of the Tao of Waves. Moreover, he now had a better understanding of the first apocalyptic sword. After reaching a higher realm, the second apocalyptic sword was no longer unattainable. He was also looking forward to it. During these 28 million years, while he was flipping through the books in the Myriad Elephant Palace, he had always been thinking about the second apocalyptic sword. Occasionally, he would go to the Palace of Time to comprehend and cultivate. Currently, he only had 500 merit points left. Unfortunately, he was still unable to grasp it. South Dongbo Shueying left the Myriad Elephant Palace and immediately turned into a streak of light, flying towards the hidden world field. Xiao xiao xiao. In the space where the Great Void Heaven Temple was located, streams of light streaked across the sky. True divinity disciples appeared from all over the place, rushing towards the hidden world field. We're here. Dongbo Shueying looked into the distance. The hidden world field was built for the sake of sparring. The vast serene world field was filled with killing intent. There were over 1,000 stone pillars in the serene world field. The golden-robed and purple-robed disciples had already landed on the stone pillars at the very front. South Dongbo Shueying also dived down and landed on the 11th stone pillar. Each disciple corresponded to a stone pillar, mainly according to the order of the last true deity disciple battle. Naturally, if there were any who became a void god, the ranking of the disciples would increase accordingly. Just like Dongbo Shueying, who suddenly appeared as a golden-robed disciple, his ranking was set at the 11th place, and the other disciples behind him had to move back one place. Swish swish, at this moment, there were still disciples descending. To the left of Dongbo Shueying, there were 10 towering stone pillars, and they were ranked in the top 10. Currently, there were 6 golden-robed disciples who had arrived. As for the right, they were naturally all violet-robed disciples. But Dongbo Shueying understood that those ranked in the top 10 were golden-robed disciples before, and their power was not small. Junior disciple brother Dongbo Shueying? I've long heard of the name of junior disciple brother Dongbo Shueying, but this is the first time I've seen him. Some golden-robed disciples said. These golden-robed disciples were either friendly or arrogant. Some were sitting cross-legged on the stone pillar with their eyes closed, ignoring everyone else. Dongbo Shueying chuckled and replied, I've just arrived at the Great Void Heaven Temple, so I've been staying in the Myriad Elephant Palace Hall. Greetings, senior disciple brothers. He is Dongbo Shueying? He is actually ranked ahead of us. There's no need to mind him. He passed the test to become a golden-robed disciple, so naturally, he is ranked 11th. However, his power is much weaker than the golden-robed disciples of our Great Void Heaven Temple. I've heard that many junior disciple brothers and junior disciple sisters have challenged him before, but he rejected them all. He even said that he would only challenge them during the ranking battle. Soon, he will have to reveal his strength. Some of the violet-robed disciples at the side transmitted their voices to each other. Although they were ranked near the front, and were even golden-robed disciples, they did not place Dongbo Shueying in their eyes. But they could only transmit their voices to each other to discuss. Very soon, the disciples ranked in the top 100 of the 1,000 stone pillars descended one by one. As for the disciples that were ranked even lower, they did not have the qualifications to enter the hidden world field directly. They needed to pass the qualification screening, and many of the violet-robed disciples did not have the qualifications to participate in the true God disciple battle. If they could not even pass the qualification screening, How could they participate in the ranking battle? The two strongest golden robe disciples. Dongbo Shuang glanced at the first and second golden robe disciples on the left. According to the information, the two of them have a clear advantage when compared to the golden robe disciples behind them. Golden robe disciples ranking. First, Rainsword Guest. Second, Old Devil Needle. Usually, given the monstrous talent of the golden robe disciples, the difference in power between those ranked close to them would be relatively small. However, the first and second ranked disciples would have an absolute advantage when facing those ranked third and those ranked behind them. Old Devil Needle? Dongbo Shuang glanced at him. He was a skinny man with green eyebrows and a black horn. His eyes were also glowing with green light, and he gave off a ruthless aura that would cause one's heart to palpitate. According to the information, this Old Devil Needle originally called himself Old Ancestor Golden Needle. However, after entering the Great Void Heaven Temple, he was forced to change his name to Old Devil Needle, even though he was very flamboyant. Old Ancestor. Usually the existence at the highest level of a cultivation system would be addressed as Old Ancestor. It carried the meaning of respect like primogenitor. Hence, within the holy grounds, those who were weak did not dare to address themselves as Ancestor. Back then, Ancestor Devil retained his title. Firstly, he was at the peak of the Unity Realm back then. Furthermore, the other Unity Realm experts within the Great Void Heaven Temple were not his match. Primal Chaos Realm experts had a high enough status that they would not act against him. Hence, he was able to retain his title. But a puny true god ruler dared to address himself as Ancestor? The Outer Hall Elders and Inner Hall Elders would definitely teach him a harsh lesson. It was fine if he addressed himself as Ancestor in some desolate places. But to address himself as Ancestor in the holy grounds, he was simply asking for trouble. Rainsword Guest. Dongbo Shuang glanced at that Rainsword Guest. Rainsword Guest was a sloppy male who sat cross-legged with a smile on his face while drinking wine. There was a sword on his back. Not only was Dongbo Shuang paying attention to the two of them, the other golden-robed and violet-robed disciples could not help but pay attention to the two of them. After all, the two of them were able to display such terrifying combat power, with just the laws and profound mysteries at the ruler realm. So. Suddenly, a large number of violet-robed disciples flew over. They're out. The qualification screening has ended. This time, there are 623 who passed. Including the 100 of us, there are a total of 723 participants in this true god-disciple ranking battle. They aren't worth mentioning. Our opponents are mainly ranked in the top 20. That's hard to say. There might be some newcomers who joined the Great Void Heaven Temple within this batch of true God disciples. Who knows, there might be some extremely talented newcomers. Dongbo Shuang suddenly sensed something and looked up. He saw a group of figures flying over from the sky. Leading them were a hunchbacked old man and a white-haired man. The two of them were flying at the very front, casually chatting with each other. Although they did not intentionally release their aura, just the huge difference in their level of life caused Dongbo Shuang to feel a palpitation that came from the depths of his soul. High and mighty, even when he was flying in the primal chaos void, facing many huge cosmoses, the pressure he felt from the cosmos could not be compared to the pressure he felt from the hunchbacked old man and white-haired man. That's right. These two existences in front of him could destroy a cosmos with a flip of their hands. If they were willing, they could even destroy a sacred world. They were also the only two existences who had reached the final realm in the laws and profound mysteries system in the 5 great sacred worlds, and even the primal chaos void. Forefather Tianyu and Sword Master. Behind the two of them, there were many primal chaos existences. There were a total of 9 primal chaos existences. Ancestor Devil was not conspicuous among them. After all, he had cultivated for a relatively short period. His combat power could only be ranked in the middle amongst the Hall Masters of the Great Void Heaven Temple. According to the news, there should be a total of 12 primal chaos existences in the Great Void Heaven Temple. It seems 3 of them aren't here. Dongbo Shuang thought. Even though the true God-disciple ranking battle was a grand event, not every primal chaos existence would definitely participate. Even the sword master would often enter closed-door cultivation and might not participate. Naturally, the sword master had participated this time, and behind them, they were the inner hall elders. Hung long, high up in the sky, the clouds converged and formed many thrones. Forefather Tian Yu and Sword Master were seated at the highest position. The 9 primal chaos existences and 31 inner hall elders were seated. They were all looking downwards. Sword Master, that young fellow is Dongbo Shuiying. Ancestor Devil transmitted, even though they had fought for a long period in his hometown, and currently, he had set the Sword Master as his target. Ancestor Devil understood the gap between them in his heart. The white-haired male, Sword Master, looked downwards. His gaze soon landed on the 11th ranked Dongbo Shuiying. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.